What is up, everybody? Happy Wednesday, and what the hell is in the water in LA? So anyway, as you guys know that have been following me for a while, if you're a new subscriber, you probably don't know. I never, not just rarely, I never really talk about the celeb shit. I never talk about the tabloid drama and what are the Kardashians up to. I never really give a fuck. But over the past 2 days, there have been so much craziness that has been happening with the Oscars and with Ezra Miller, and then now this heartbreaking reveal that we've got about Bruce Willis that there's a lot to discuss just
Yeah.
on the surface value, but there's so many things that, when you see the Twitter discourse and the TikTok discourse and the Facebook discourse, and it just seems like so many people are just missing the point, and it just becomes about what star do you like more and what movie do you like
Mhm.
more, and there's so many things that I feel like are worth talking about that are deeper than just the catchy headline that I kind of wanted to talk about it. I tried to get Brian and CP and Sean as well. They were all busy or indisposed. And thank God Rudy was available because I literally put it on message. I was like, I'm like jittery sitting here, like wanting to talk about this stuff, which is really weird for me. So for those that might not have seen one of my previous live streams or any of the collabs that we've done, Rudy's movie reviews over here. Also on TikTok is Rudy A, right?
Rudy A. Yeah, that's right.
Rudy A. Okay, so TikTok, he's blowing it up over there. Rudy does a lot of relationship advice and coaching and things like that. So he's actually the perfect person to talk about this type of conversation with because that's what he traditionally does is
Yeah.
dives a little bit deeper than skin deep, right?
Absolutely. There's much more going on beneath the surface than what we see up front. Everything we're seeing right now is a result. That's the last straw that broke the camel's back. There's been tons of things that have been happening
Yes.
that led to these events. So yeah, we'll talk and discuss some ideas. Definitely.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I wanted to do this. I don't know how many people are going to be tuning in for this. I know a lot of people are already tired of hearing about the Oscar stuff 2 days in, but I still think there's a lot of stuff to unpack with this. The more details that we find out about it, and it's just for a change of pace. It's something
Why
that I
not?
felt like was important. We talk about whether Freddy can beat Jason enough. We can talk about some real life shit for a couple of hours. Thank you, Amanda, coming right in, right off the rip with some $20. Oh man, and Holly. Ah, she beat you by a cent, Holly. All right, who's gonna do the next one? No, I'm just kidding. I see you did see what's going on with Bruce. LOL. I literally just messaged you. How sad is it that my husband said, "Oh no, Bruce is retiring," and I said, "Oh, I need to message Cody." I actually had a lot of messages and a lot of tweets. As soon as people heard some stuff about Bruce Willis, they thought of me, and I did a quick little YouTube short thing, and it's probably obvious when you watch it. Like I was literally like about to I was holding back tears just in 60 seconds of footage because it just
Wow.
we'll start off talking about that. We'll get this out of the way first because this is at least the not the controversial side of the conversation. So for those that may not know, Bruce Willis, his family announced today on Twitter, I think it was Demi and it was Rumor Willis, that Bruce is going to be stepping away from acting. I think it was left ambiguous whether or not this is permanent or just for now. But he is stepping away from acting because he has been suffering from a condition called aphasia, which, from the little bit of research that I've done, is kind of like a form of dementia. And essentially, it impacts his cognitive ability to have and create conversation and to communicate with words, which is critical if you're an actor. And
Yeah.
so on two different levels, this really hit me. One, obviously, as a lot of you know, Die Hard is my favorite film of all time. And so Bruce Willis, by default, has been one of my favorite actors of all time. I love this guy. I mean, so many of his movies: Pulp Fiction, Sixth Sense, Unbreakable, Sin City. I could go all day long, but especially Die Hard. So anytime you read something like this about an actor or an artist that has impacted you a lot in your life, it's always disheartening. So that's one side of it. The other side of it, which is kind of going to tie more into the conversation that I want to have, that's going to tie into Will Smith a little bit. And I'm guilty of this. Bruce Willis has been the blunt end of a joke for what, 10 years now, that he's just lazy and has given up
Yeah.
and he's just shit his career. And I've called him the king of Redbox. That was kind of my contribution to all of that. He's the king of the
Mhm.
Redbox, is what I've been saying for about 5 or 6 years right now. And when you read this, at least for me, somebody that loves this guy and has certainly made those little comments, it punched me in the gut because I'm like, wow, how long have we been ridiculing this guy for his work and what he's chosen to do?
Yeah.
And now it comes out that maybe he had no choice, that his brain was literally fighting back at him. And that was all that he could do to keep food on the table, was to do these little short roles where they put his face on the poster and he's in it for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And so that's something that, when we'll tie it back in whenever we talk about Will Smith, but it really hit me the past 2 days talking about men's mental health a little bit and just mental health in general, that it's amazing how much that we don't ever stop to consider what somebody's going through, and we just make jokes and turn somebody into a meme. And again, we'll circle back to this when we get to Will Smith, but it was something that even more kind of tragic for me when I look at this Bruce Willis thing, and I'm like, wow, how long have we been making fun of this guy for these goofy ass little red box movies? And he's been suffering with this health condition that might end his career and seriously impact his ability to even be with his family at some point. And it was just a joke to everybody for so long, and it's kind of heartbreaking. Um, what was kind of your response when you found out about this today, and kind of tying into all that stuff that I was just
Well,
saying?
well, I found out after you told me because
Oh, yeah.
for those who don't know, today's my birthday. I turned 45.
Thank you. I'm sorry. Happy birthday.
I forgot again. I just told you. So
It's Bruce Willis, man.
Cody.
Forgive me. I'm sorry. Happy birthday, Rudy.
Thank you. Yeah, I turned the big 4-5, and like Cody says, "Hey, what are you doing today?" I'm like, "That's my birthday." But guys, when Cody Leach says, "Hey, you want to be in a live?" There's two questions: what time and what do I wear? So here I am.
Now and absolutely nothing.
But I didn't know about it until I got your message. You want to talk about Bruce Willis? I'm like, what's going on? And then I looked at the article,
Hmm.
and it hit me in a personal level. Because for those who don't know, if I get emotional here, I'm sorry, but my
Dude, I'm
dad
I'm
does.
I'm been emotional about it, and I don't have personal ties to it, so
Yeah,
feel free, please.
my dad has dementia,
Hmm.
and he's in the later stages of it. And it's probably no, it's the most heartbreaking thing to see your loved one there physically, but they're not there. They periodically come back,
Hmm.
but it's heartbreaking. Like today was an emotional day for me because every birthday, my mom and dad call me and sing happy birthday. And for my dad to fight his way to sing happy birthday, he got halfway through but forgot the rest. I cried this
Mm.
morning. So seeing like somebody you love, like Bruce Willis for yourself, he's a hero, right? He's my hero too. We grew up watching his movies.
Yeah.
My dad's my hero. So when you see somebody that you've admired your entire life and had admiration for, and then to see them in this state, it's the most heartbreaking state because you know they're so talented, they got a lot to say. They're great in what they do, and they still have so much more to tell, and they can't because their minds
Yeah.
aren't there. So for me, when I saw this, it broke my heart. Uh, and again, it hit me on an emotional level, on the personal side, and it reminded me that one of my favorite YouTube channels
Hmm.
is Red Letter Media.
Hmm.
I love them to death. They have a smart ass type of channel, but they're very insightful in the industry because they make movies and they know what it takes to
Yeah.
make a movie. And I have their website here, but about a month ago, they made a video called The Bruce Willis Fake Movie Factory.
Hmm.
And just like you were saying, they were ridiculing him because he made like 15 movies within a 2-year period,
Yeah.
and they were calling him like just really just exhausting the last lingering lights of his star because his name was still a brand, and just cashing in these checks for $1 million a movie. And they were just breaking down each scenes, how he was lazy, he didn't memorize his lines, it looked like he was reading his lines. They zoomed in on his ear in a lot of shots that he had an
Hmm.
earpiece, and they're saying there's someone just feeding him his lines. Is this guy just milking the last ounce of his stardom for a buck?
Yeah.
And they were just, again, watch the video. And again, this is before they knew.
Yeah.
So they
Of
go
course.
into
Of course.
incredible detail on just bad mouthing Bruce Willis. And then they made a follow-up video because somebody notified them that there was a rumor that he had dementia. And
Hmm.
then they go, well, that changes everything. We didn't know. We're sorry about that. But then they're saying it kind of makes sense
Yeah.
if the doctor's telling him, like the doctor told my dad, you got 2 good years of mental health left.
Hmm.
So as a father, maybe I can see Bruce Willis saying, okay, let me make as many movies as I can
Yeah.
and make as much money so I can gift that to my children and everybody else. And now I see what he was doing. So in essence, just like you said, man, we can't be too quick to judge because we don't know what's going on.
Hmm.
And that's where I was at with this whole situation, man.
And in contrast to that, the Razzie Awards in 2021, as a joke, kind of playing into this whole Bruce Willis just pumping out shit left and right. They made an entire category this past year that said worst Bruce Willis performance. And
Mm.
I've never really cared for the Razzies. I don't get much entertainment out of that. I mean, we all shit on movies when we have to, but they just kind of having an entire organization just to shit on people's work. It never really sat well with me. They put out a tweet today which was literally, and I said it before we went live, is literally the most tasteless thing that I have seen this entire week, which is saying a fucking lot.
Mm-hmm.
They put out a tweet that said the Razzies are truly sorry for Bruce Willis' diagnosed condition. Perhaps this explains why he wanted to go out with a bang in 2021. I tweeted this. You guys can go fuck yourselves. Moving on. But yeah, it's one of those things, man, where like it's so easy to joke about things, especially with people that are in the public eye so much. And of course, they chose that life, so they have to choose the good with the bad. But that was something that really hit me because I've been as much of a diehard fan that I am. Every time I have the conversation about Die Hard, like, man, I hope we can get another one, but we can't get
Mm-hmm.
Bruce out of Redbox, and there was always a period, a punctuation at the end of every good statement you could make about Bruce Willis for the past 5 or 6 years without putting that out there at the end of it. And it's just like, fuck, man, I wish I could just take all that back now because like. How much of that did that guy just have to sit there and take and read and just grit because he just didn't feel like putting his personal business out there and was just trying to do his thing. And that all hit me pretty hard. Whenever I read it, like you always get scared when you see an actor's face and like everybody's tweeting it. You're like, oh no, who died? And but then something else, but it was almost like the same emotional response where it's just like, that might be it for Bruce Willis. That might be no more. Yeah. Might be no more movies, no new Die Hard, no nothing, which is the least of concerns when it comes to health. But it's just, yeah, that one hit me pretty hard.
It's funny how, again, I'm 45, like I said, but it's funny how it's something happens in your 40s. I don't know what it is, but you start to lose the heroes that you grew up watching. People start going away, like Leonard Nimoy, Christopher Reeve for me. And it hits you, man. It just like, what the hell? Life just kind of goes on, but it just reminds you that, what we have here and what we adore and what we love, this is just temporary. Things come and go and things can be taken away from us. So I think it's a again, along with the other topics you're going to bring up, it really just puts us at a halt and just says, hey, you know what? He's doing this, but we don't know. And again, I truly feel bad for the guy because again, one of my first favorite action movies was Die Hard. Yeah. I didn't see it at the theater, but I saw it on HBO when they reran it all the time. And it was one of those movies. It still is to this day where I can see it. I've seen it hundreds of times, but I can still sit down and watch it.
Oh, I'm that way. I mean, I watch it every single year, at least once, and I had the same experience every time. I laugh my ass off at the same scenes. I get chills and I get pumped at the same scenes, and it never dilutes. It never dilutes.
Yeah, and I remember when I was a kid, I used to love watching television shows with my mom. And I remember he was on Moonlighting before Die Hard.
Yeah.
And Moonlighting was one of our favorite shows with Sybil Shepherd and him. They had this great chemistry and I loved it. Yeah. So he was always a talent. I remember when I was a kid, like, he's a comedian. He's going to be an action star. He's not even bulky like Arnold or Rambo, because that was my perception of action.
Everybody's. That was kind of what made Die Hard so special for everybody that got to experience it when it came out. Was they were like, well, who's this scrawny motherfucker, man? You got to have muscles. You got to be oiled up. And you got to be gigantic. Like, get out of here. What are you doing? And like, I've even heard stories of people that went to the theater just to make fun of it.
Yep.
And then 10 minutes in, they're like,
whoa.
They just shut the fuck up and just watch. Yep. And that's one of those movies, man. I wish that I could have been there when it was, the new thing.
Yeah.
But
they're all great. I mean, my favorite, I think 4. I think after 4 was like, I didn't really watch the others, but 4 was the computer one, watching that. I forgot Die Hard or something. I forget.
Live Free or Die Hard.
There you go. They're all great. Those 4 are great. The others I don't.
Well, there's only one other, but we don't talk about it.
With the Russian one.
A Good Day to Die Hard is.
Oh man, but
wow. Anyway, I know there's 0% chance that Bruce or his family will ever see this, but just like I said in my video today, my little YouTube short, all I want to say is if this is in fact the end of Bruce Willis's career, all I can say is thank you for all of the awesome movies, the awesome work that you've done. It's impacted me more than I could ever say it. It's impacted a lot of us more than we could ever say it. And I hope that Bruce gets all of the treatment that he needs. I hope that I don't know the details of it. I don't know if it's something that's treatable that can get better, but if it is, I hope it does. And if, God forbid, if it's not, I hope he at least is able to enjoy his time at home and not working.
Yeah. Yeah. And my heart goes out to his family
Yeah.
because he's still here. Like, I don't want to say the sad thing, but the heartbreaking thing is they're not in pain. Physically, they feel great. It's just their mind where it can be really difficult for the family. So my heart goes out to the family because I know exactly what they're going through in a sense. And
Mm-hmm.
it can be heartbreaking, dude. I don't know if I said this. I'll tell everybody because this is how it is. I went to my parents' house to drop off some groceries. I knock on the door.
Mm-hmm.
My dad opens the door. He was like, "Can I help you, sir?" And I'm like, "Dad, it's me." He was like, "No, my son's not here." And I'm like, "Fuck."
Mm.
And I'm like, "All right, just go. Don't question him." I'm like, "Okay, sir, I'll be back later. Bye." And I close the door. I go to the car. I have a moment. I cry, of course. And I go back, knock on the door. "Hey, Dad, it's me." He goes, "Mijo, come right in." And then
Mm-hmm.
he remembers me. So that's what the family's going to be going through. And it's not easy. It's so hard, man.
I can only imagine, man. Honestly, I can only imagine. All right, well, we'll take a couple of quick comments. We got one here. Well, we got one here that needs to be read. Cody and Rudy, I saw X last night with my girlfriend and loved it. I can't stand the whole Will Smith scandal. I'm a big Oscars fan. Watch Coda with your families, guys. You'll love it. Yes, X is awesome. If you're into that type of movie, definitely go check it out. We'll get to Will Smith. And I have not seen Coda. I tend to err on the side of caution with the Oscar films, but it has piqued my interest a bit. I heard it's one of those like heartwarming kind of movies, and
Yeah.
sometimes those are needed.
Yeah.
Especially when you watch horror so much, you're like, okay, I need to enter the light a little bit. What would you say is Bruce Willis's last great film? Mine is Looper. Mine would probably be Looper. I don't let me pull up his filmography.
I have to confess, I've never seen Looper. I've heard it's great. I know Rian Johnson directed it, and I know that's how he got The Last Jedi fucked everything up. But,
so you're holding it responsible,
yeah,
Rudy?
yeah. There's a little resentment there.
Oh man.
But I hear it's great. I've heard nothing but great things about it.
It's fucking awesome.
Mhm.
It's fucking awesome. Yes.
Oh God, what is it for me? I think the Sixth Sense is great for me, and that's the last one I can recall. I really love that, and of course, Unbreakable. That's a good one.
Well, then, yeah, I guess my answer would be Glass then, because I'm one of the few people that genuinely loved Glass. It worked for me, despite the things that people have issues with, which I understand. So yeah, it would be Glass, and then before that would actually be Death Wish. I forgot about Death Wish. I'm one of the 5 people on planet Earth that love Death Wish.
I never saw it. I never did.
Oh man,
like it's a remake of Death Wish.
Yeah, it's one of those movies, man, where it came out and the only conversation was like, "This is not the movie to have during gun violence time," and it's like it's always fucking gun violence time. And then people like all the critics watched, like all the reviews were just hilarious because it was like, what fucking movie did you think you were walking into? It's called Death Wish. Bruce Willis is on the cover holding a fucking gun. Like it's They walk
Didn't
in
Eli
like they were
Roth
expecting
direct it or produce it or something?
Yes, and it was for me.
There you go.
And again, as somebody that I'm in the minority, I think it's his best movie. But I also am not a huge fan of his horror stuff.
I don't know.
I'm not a huge fan of his horror stuff, so you got to take it with a grain of salt. Take it with a boulder of salt. But I loved his remake of Death Wish. It was just I'm a sucker for that revenge flick. So I loved that.
I will say this: my favorite Die Hard is not 1; it's actually 3.
3 is so fucking awesome that I will not argue that with anybody. The very ending of 3, like the last 4 minutes of 3, keeps it out of that conversation for me. But everything else up to that is on par.
It's perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
Even forget Simon. God, what's the actor's name?
Oh shit.
Yeah, I loved him in that movie.
He's Jeffrey Irons.
There you go.
Jeremy Irons.
His brother.
Yeah.
Oh.
I love that scene in that movie. My favorite scene of all is whenever he's got him dead to rights and like they're both wounded and he's just sitting there talking shit to him. He's like, your brother was an asshole. He's just like, just turns on a dime like, you seriously have balls.
Awesome.
Got it. I love that character. All right. So moving on to certainly a character. For those that don't know, old Ezra Miller. Arrested, it was either yesterday or the day before in Hawaii for disorderly conduct, harassment, released after posting $500 bail. So I'm going to paraphrase and kind of shorten this, but essentially he was arrested because he was in a bar and he was drunk in Hawaii. It was a karaoke bar. Apparently he was heckling the woman who was doing karaoke, didn't like what she was singing or whatever.
Shallow. She was singing Shallow.
Okay, so eventually he went up and forcibly took the microphone from her when she wouldn't listen to him. And then somebody yelling from the audience at Ezra for his behavior, he ended up lunging at the guy. And so he was arrested essentially for attempted assault, even though they phrased it a bunch of different ways.
Mhm.
And he had an incident about 2 years ago, maybe it was a little sooner than that, where he literally like basically choked a woman and put her to the ground. People say choke slam. He didn't really like slam her down, but he
Mhm.
grabbed a woman by the neck and took her to the ground. And it was a weird video because you couldn't quite tell if it was like,
It was so quick too.
is it a fake? Is he messing around? And then it turned out apparently it wasn't, because there was charges filed.
Mhm.
And WB, everybody was talking about it because nobody did anything back then. Nobody made a statement. I'm not really big on cancel culture, but this is a studio that just removed a guy from The Flash for the TV show for like 10-year-old tweets. They booted Johnny Depp's ass because of things that Amber Heard was saying. And then after it came out that in all likeliness she was full of shit and
Yeah.
she was the aggressor, they didn't do anything to her. And so WB especially is just so weird with their morality plays. So
Mhm.
everybody was like, well, what about this guy? And nobody did anything. Nobody said anything. We just carried on like, shh, we got the Flash coming out. And it went away eventually. Well, now you have this. And again, it kind of seemed like one of those things where it's like, okay, the guy clearly just needs to stay away from alcohol.
Yeah.
And then today, apparently, the people that he is actually staying with in Hawaii have filed a restraining order against him. And I'll read the article verbatim. It's a Hawaii couple files for temporary restraining order against Ezra Miller following actor's arrest. They're the ones that actually bailed him out for the $500 and let him come back. And while
Oh,
that night later on, apparently he stole a bunch of shit out of their bedroom, like their wallet and their IDs and stuff, burst into the bedroom of the petitioner and threatened the alleged male victim by saying, "I will bury you and your slut wife." And so now you got all that on top of it.
mhm.
So the first part of the conversation is obviously like, what do you do about the Flash now? Like, again, I'm not somebody who ever really is a proponent of cancel culture. More times than not, I'm against it. I think it's fucking annoying. I think that one mistake should not destroy
Right.
somebody's life or career, depending on the mistake, obviously. But for the most part, people want to like on Twitter and Hollywood, they just want to condemn everybody and just wash their whole life away with piss over a tweet. You know what I mean? It
Right.
doesn't take anything. But in this case, you've got a guy who clearly has a bit of a history of just violence and disorderly conduct when he's drunk. And now he's like threatening to murder people and stuff. Like, I don't know what the hell's going on with the dude, but something's off. Something's off.
Something's going on. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it brings up a lot of interesting questions because The Flash, which is a movie that we're all of us DC fans are really looking forward to.
Mhm.
And it's it might be the most high profile thing they have coming out, and it doesn't hurt the fact that they have Michael Keaton's return as Batman in it. There's a lot of things that's like that, and the big question of what is this movie going to do to the Snyder stuff? Is this going to, there's rumors that it might wash everything away. Now there's early release rumors saying that maybe they leave the door open for Ben Affleck to come back sometime. And there's just all these things. It's like, what is this movie going to be? And
Mhm.
now you have the lead star of it that's like in the middle of all this crazy shit. One, how do you release the movie with this image? Two, how do you market the movie? How do you do press with this guy when he can't nobody's gonna ask him
Yeah.
about the fucking movie? And we're like, hey, what's up with that restraining order and the everything like that? So
Mhm.
I'll just kind of just toss it over to you, like because you're even more invested in the Snyderverse and everything that I am.
Oh yeah.
What do you do?
Well, I mean, it's tough because again, I know of some of the incidents that you just spoke about, but I wanted to do some research. So before we went live, I looked up. He's
Hmm.
only had 3 incidents, and you've named them all. The first
Hmm.
one happened in April 1st, 2020, where again he was at a bar. So every
Hmm.
incident involved liquor or alcohol, and he was leaving a place, and he was confronted by fans who, in his words, were really pushy and were just kind of instigating him to do something. And I
Hmm.
saw the video. I'm not condoning what he did, but it's so quick. I thought it was fake.
It's weird. It's a weird
It's like 4
thing.
seconds of an action, and we don't know what happened before that. And with me, when it comes to like, I don't want to get off topic, but cop videos, escalation videos, people fighting on TikTok or whatever, we always see the end result,
Yeah.
like the last 5 6 seconds of somebody just erupting and blowing up and just doing something,
Hmm.
and we condemn that person, but we don't know the 20 minutes before or what happened. So I'm always not one to jump and place judgment on people because we don't know
Oh,
what's
for
going on.
sure.
And with Ezra Miller, again, they all involve alcohol. So
Hmm.
definitely he's got a problem. And I'm not one to give actors like an olive branch as far as an excuse, but a lot of great actors have had problems. I mean, as recent, we've had Mel Gibson is one that's renowned. He's a phenomenal
Probably
actor.
the most well-known example.
Yeah. And he's a phenomenal director. I mean, I would, no matter what he's done, I want more Mel Gibson films because he's
Yeah.
such a great talent. There's also Shia LaBeouf. He's an amazing actor. I've loved the past few films that he's done recently. He really gets involved in his characters.
Hmm.
And of course, the original one for me back in the 90s was Robert Downey Jr.
Oh yeah.
Everybody who knows Robert now, he's like a hero. He's like almost like a deity to a lot of people. But in the 90s and 80s, all we knew him was like Ezra Miller, if not worse,
Hmm.
because he was always getting arrested. He was found high in somebody's house. Everybody gave up on him.
Hmm.
And we wrote him off. Every a current affair, Inside Edition, everybody would just had him in an orange prison uniform, handcuffed, and going and facing the judge. So everybody wrote Robert Downey Jr. off. And look what happened to him. The
Hmm.
guy got help, and he came back with like a vengeance. The guy is amazing and an example to a lot of people. So with Ezra Miller, I really think if I'm like a PR person at Warner Brothers, I'm going to tell him just to own up to it.
Hmm.
Don't make any excuses. Say, hey, I've got a problem. This is what's going on. I apologize to everybody that I'm affected with the production and the release of the film. I'm going to get help. I definitely need it. And I'm just going to move forward with this. If you want to ask me questions about it, I'll answer them.
Hmm.
But, I'm in a dark place right now. Something's going on because, we don't know what these actors, I don't know what it takes to be in to really be consumed within a character, change your
Yeah.
mindset, change your behaviors to become something. I don't know what that involves, but there's a historic, just like telling of actors really getting into characters and having problems after the fact, like Heath Ledger. That's another one.
Hmm.
There's so many things. So I don't know what it takes to be an actor, to dive into a role. But what I'm saying is, I think he should own up to it. Say, I messed up. Let's continue with it. I'm going to seek help, but let's keep moving forward. I don't want to mess up the production or the press. But just own up to anything. Whenever the press asks him a question, just be honest about it.
Yeah.
And own up to it. That's it.
I definitely hope that he gets the help that he needs for two reasons. One, obviously, just because he desperately needs it. But two, one of the problems with the typical kind of path that we take with the cancel culture is that, like, say, for example, they just decide, okay, well, fuck you. You just boot him from the DC movies and then just leave him to his own devices. Well, whatever was causing the problem in the first place was never addressed. And now
Right.
he's lost the biggest opportunity of his career, which is just going to compound it. And so, ideally, I hope WB, his representation, whatever,
Hmm.
sits him down. Is like, we need to change some shit.
Yeah.
And like you just said, like, you can either do it or we got no choice, but we got to move on. Like, we need to fucking figure out what this is. They got like a year now. When did it get delayed to? Like
Next May or
October or
something
some
like that.
shit. Like, yeah, we got like a year until this movie comes out. So,
Can you imagine working for Warner Brothers, like thinking it's in the can, you're done, you're going on
dude, can you
vacation?
imagine being the director or anybody where
I'd
they're
be
just like,
pissed, dude.
fuck, dude?
I'd start
Yeah.
drinking like, God damn it,
Yeah.
what are we doing now?
Yeah, exactly.
God.
So it's just, I hope that would be the best situation. And it'd be a nice story too before the movie came out. If they can get him cleaned up and he can change his shit around and get the public to actually buy into it. That's the other part of it too. But
Mhm.
I hope that is the case. Now, to play, just for the sake of conversation, let's say that maybe this is it. Maybe this is the straw that broke the camel's back, and now WB's got to figure out what to do.
Mhm.
What do you do? I mean, what are your options? You have, I put a tweet out earlier, which some people just, it's hilarious how quick Twitter just, people just want to argue. So they just miss the nuance of everything that you're saying.
Yeah, I
I
have to
pretty
step
much
away
said,
from it
like,
sometimes, dude. I can't do it every day.
yeah, oh yeah, I know. I put up a tweet where I was basically asking, like, so what do you do with the Flash? Do you recast him and reshoot all of his scenes? And he's the lead actor. And I think he's playing multiple versions of himself. So
Right.
holy shit, the amount of reshooting. Two, do you use the magic of CGI and CGI his face, deep fake him over to Leonardo DiCaprio or whoever the hell they recast him with for the whole movie? Or do you just let the Flash be the casualty that it is and let WB once again go back to the drawing board and say, well, fuck, now that's messed up. We got to figure out what, like, we got to let that one go and die on the
Mhm.
hill. And then we're going to switch over to Wally West, or we're going to recast him and have like a reshoot post credit scene where he goes into the Speed Force and comes out as a different actor.
Oh God.
Or do you just
Gives me a
stick the
headache.
Flash on the fucking shelf next to Henry Cavill Superman and like, well, okay, what's Blue Beetle doing? Let's move on.
Yeah.
Like, what do you do?
Well, I mean, let's. I think look at Morbius right now. The whole what's this? The
Oh,
guy,
what a
30
shit
Seconds to
show.
Mars, whatever the hell his name is. Good looking dude.
Jared Leto.
Yeah, look at that mess. I don't. We don't want Flash. I mean, Flash is a tentpole film for Warner Brothers. That's the
Mhm,
one that's gonna, be the apex for the whole universe. So they have to do it right. But
mhm,
at the same time, there's so many things going on with Warner Brothers. So again, I applaud Disney and Marvel for what they've done. For them to have a cohesive plan, they are the model. So as much as I
yeah,
don't like MCU movies, they are doing it right, and they need to go teach everybody else how to do it. But Warner Brothers, not only do we have Ezra as a variable, but we have to remember there's a merger. A Discovery is buying Warner Brothers, and from what I'm hearing, every executive that was against the Snyder Cut is being let go. Which good fucking riddance. You're out of here. My prayers are being answered. But
mhm,
I hear Discovery is more sympathetic to the Snyderverse. So now you have new leadership. So let's say Ezra was doing great. You still have leadership coming in that may redirect everything,
mhm,
and again, just going off rumors here, may say, "Hey, the fans want Justice League 2 and 3. Let's give them that." So
mhm,
whatever the finale was, because we heard that Ezra, the Flash, was going to erase the Snyderverse. That's not what we're going to do. We're going to give the fans what we want. Let's say they change course, that it's still going to be delayed. So I'm saying, just take your time.
mhm.
Release Shazam, maybe film maybe a teaser of a post credit scene. Release Black Adam. I think those films are fine, but really take the time and patience with the Flash, because this is going to make or break the DCU, in my opinion.
Yeah,
Be patient
I'm
with
with you.
delayed as long as you want. In 2024, fuck it, whatever. Just
Yeah,
do it right.
I would not want to be the one in charge of the decision, that's for sure. Because,
Oh
like,
man,
obviously, we have never seen anything. If they decided that they had to reshoot the movie, like,
yeah.
we've never seen anything on that level before. We've seen like Kevin Spacey get removed, but he was like a side character. But
Mhm.
like, this is the lead, and but that also like, if there's no tying the guy in, there's no reining him in. He's just like a fucking a rabid animal out there and they can't do anything about it. Like you can't market the film now, you can't do any press tours with it. So I'm curious on whether or not it would be less expensive to let the film just go as is or to
Mhm.
reshoot all of that shit. Because the press tour, the marketing, everything, like sometimes that budget is as much as the damn film.
Yeah,
And so, especially a movie like this, I mean, shit, Morbius, you just brought it up. We've been seeing trailers for that fucking thing
for a
for like what,
year.
8 years?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like so, yeah, it's an interesting conversation to have about like with all the possibilities of how to go about it. Like, wow, what do you do?
And if worse comes to worse, if Warner's, they give him all the help he needs as far as rehab, and
Hmm.
he's still messing up, just recast him. They recasted the Hulk. They've recasted Superman. There's been plenty of Batmans, and plus Flash,
Spider Man.
Spider-Man. So it won't be a big deal. We're used to recasting. If that worst comes to worst, just do that.
Yeah, like I said, just a little post credit scene where they let us go through the whole movie. Like, damn, like that was really good. It's too bad about Ezra. Oh shit, he just morphed into fucking Timothy Chalamet. Look at that. Like,
And there you go. We all be fine with that.
yeah, there you go. It would almost be a hilarious joke at the same time. Norseman, big fan of you both. Keep up the great work. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So let me see here. Moving on from that, this is kind of the big topic, of course. Some people are sick of talking about it, but it's been the only topic of conversation for 3 days now. So, if you've been on vacation since Sunday evening, or if you've sworn off, take a social media break, and I'm your gateway drug back in, and you're just now rejoining the world. So we had a little show called the Oscars on Sunday. You know, they hand out awards for films and stuff like that. And the ratings have been dipping continuously over the years. I want to say last year may have been the lowest ratings ever. Don't quote me on it, but it's possible. I'm almost positive that was the fact.
Mhm.
So ratings this year certainly on the talk afterwards have shot through the roof because in the middle of a presentation to where Chris Rock, the famous comedian, we all know and love Chris. Most of us love him, but we all know him. Gets on stage to present the Oscar for Best Documentary, I believe. And he does what you hire Chris Rock to do. Hey, man, go out there, be funny, roast everybody in the front row. Okay, cool. He's hosted the Oscars himself before, so this is
Yeah.
this is no this is nothing new to him. Walks out, starts making jokes at everybody, talks about Javier Bardem and Penelope Cruz and their marriage. And right before getting ready to present his award, he goes off script and makes a joke about Jada Pinkett Smith, who was sitting in the front row next to her husband, Will Smith, and said, "Jada, I love you. G.I. Jane 2, can't wait to see it." She had a shaved bald head. That was the look she went with for the evening. And so him taking a really out of nowhere reference to a movie that I haven't heard anybody talk about in 20 years and just saying, just making a playground joke, in my opinion, off of her appearance for the
That's
night.
all it was. That's all it
Yeah.
was.
And then goes to present the award. Will Smith walks up on stage and bitch slaps him across the face.
Horrible.
And I was not watching the Oscars. I typically don't watch the Oscars unless there's like a specific category where I'm really pulling for somebody or pulling for a certain film. I might tune in for that segment. But I'm somebody that I think the Oscars as a ceremony is extremely long and extremely boring. And more times than not, most of the films that are up for consideration, I have no interest in anyway. So it has to be something really specific. Like whenever Leo DiCaprio, it seemed like he was the fan favorite to win for The Revenant. I tuned in because it was like, finally Leo got his trophy. And this year would have been similar with Will Smith because I love Will Smith. I've always loved Will Smith. He's always been one of my favorite actors. And he's one of those guys that I won't say he's been snubbed because I'd have to look and see what other films won, but he's certainly done best actor caliber work numerous times.
Yeah.
And I still have yet to see King Richard, but that's been all I've heard since that movie came out was like, this is it. This is the one. And so I get on Twitter and you're like, oh, look at that. Oh, Dune won like 5 different things. That's pretty cool. All right. Oh, yeah. Okay. That went back to, holy shit. Is that real? And then I pull it up and that seemed to be the conversation for like the first hour was like, did that really just happen? Was that like the worst skit ever? Or did that actually, that was weird. And then all of a sudden you started to see the uncensored clips getting released because in America, they cut the audio out. As soon as he smacked them and went to walk back, Chris got like 2 words in and the audio cut out until that whole thing was done. You play the uncensored footage and to me, it's obvious. This is not a skit. There's still people that are holding to that. The conspiracy theorists that think it was a skit. My question would be, what do either of these gentlemen have to gain by doing this?
No shit. I know. I that's what I said.
To me, it's obvious. I'm just like, tell me how that makes sense. But anyway, so nonetheless, it's become clear, at least to me, for a lot of us, that this was not a skit. So Chris Rock says the joke about Jada Pinkett Smith. I think in general, it was a very tame joke. I think when you're thinking that it came out of Chris Rock's mouth, it's extremely tame.
Oh, yeah.
Especially regarding how many things that you can poke fun at with the Smiths. We'll get into. But he says the joke. He gets assaulted on stage in front of the world. Keeps his composure. Doesn't hit back. Even stops for a second. And there's a moment where he goes, ooh, I could. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's like he knows, dude, I could like verbally decimate you right now if I wanted to. Doesn't do that. Keeps his professionalism, hands out the award, walks off stage. While Will Smith is screaming at him from the seat. And everybody in the audience is just like quiet from that. They were like, oh shit, this isn't a joke. And so it's been the talk for like the past 3 days of, wow, how could that happen? Amazingly to me, which is where the bulk of this conversation is going to be, a lot of debate on who is right and who is wrong here, but for me is just like fucking black and white. Right. But nonetheless, what should be done with Chris Rock or excuse me, Will Smith? Nobody seems to be asking how Chris is, by the way. Everybody's just like, is Will okay? What are the Smiths saying about this? And it's just like, what about Chris? He's actually on stage right now doing his first stand-up bit since this happened. So I can't wait to see the cell phone footage of how he addresses this. But it brings up a lot of conversations. And I did a video on Monday, the morning after this happened. And like I said at the beginning of this live stream, I'm somebody that never, I barely even address things, but I never do actual content talking about celeb bullshit and tabloid bullshit. But all of the discourse on Twitter and Facebook and everything regarding this incident just kind of like, it blew my mind. I wasn't surprised, but I was just kind of like disappointed that just where people went with the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So when I see this, and I know you agree because we're going to start to talk about all this. When I see this event, I don't see a man that got mad at a joke about his wife and he reacted to it. I see a man who has about 2+ years, maybe even longer, of just bottled up fury and pain, and that fucking lid just exploded off in that moment.
Yep.
Because there's the footage where he was laughing for a second, and then she rolls her eyes, the camera cuts away, and then something happened. I don't know if she gave him a look. I don't know if she said something to him
She
or
gave him the
what.
look.
She gave him that, "You better
Yeah.
do something or your ass is sleeping on the couch," and I'll stop there.
Mhm.
So something happened and he went up, and for a guy that I would say most of us would say is one of the most normal ones in Hollywood, potentially shattered his entire image in that one act, and certainly tainted the entire ceremony, and
Oh, yeah.
definitely tainted his first Oscar win, which is a huge shame. So, I've been talking a lot. So, like, what did you think immediately when you saw this blowing up everywhere?
Well, just to kind of tell my side, I wasn't watching it. My phone blew up. I was watching the Justice League because they had just beaten the MCU for the favorite fan moment.
You fucking
And I'm like,
fanboy.
you know what? I'm gonna watch it just to celebrate this moment.
Rudy just has it on loop in his living room, just
Yeah,
giving them views.
constantly. I'm watching it, and my phone blows up, and my girlfriend's telling me that Will Smith punched Chris Rock. What? So I go back and I'm watching it, and I'm like, it does look fake, but then the audio that I think leaked from Australia
Yeah.
showed like he was
Keep my
totally
wife's
legit
name out your fucking mouth.
with the head nod and everything.
I know
But
you just won Best Actor, but that feels real.
oh, that was the best acting he's ever done.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's so many camps. So there's I think there's more camps, but there's really, let's start with this. Chris Rock, did he cross the line? No, in my opinion. He is a comedian.
I
If
still
you
haven't seen anybody confirm or deny if he even knew she had the condition.
Who the hell would know? I mean, I'm sure Chris
That's
is
the
so
thing.
damn
It's like
busy. He's
fucking
not gonna
people
know
on
what
the
the hell's going on
internet,
with her.
like, yeah, the Jada Pinkett Smith fans know because they
Yeah,
follow her fucking or her Facebook show or whatever. But that is not common knowledge. It's
yeah,
not.
yeah.
And I hope nobody takes this as racist because I don't mean it that way at all. It's not uncommon to see a black woman with a shaved head.
Right.
It's a hairdo that a lot of black women sport.
Mhm.
It's much less common if it was a white woman. So a lot of time you see somebody with a shaved head that you wouldn't traditionally see that hairstyle, and of course you might think for a second like, I hope they're not suffering from some illness, but that's a hairdo that's pretty commonly sported in their culture.
Yeah,
And
but
so
go ahead, I'm sorry.
if he didn't know, I would have never assumed that. I would have like, oh, that's just I didn't think for a second. I see it. I don't think anything about the shaved head. That's a look.
Yeah, and plus they're actors. I would be thinking, "Oh, she's maybe in a movie right now
Or
or
that.
getting
Thank
ready
you.
for a role."
Yeah.
Just like you remember when Tom Hanks showed up looking like a jungle man, but he was really just filming Castaway.
Yeah.
That's what I would think. I wouldn't think illness, not at all, especially if it wasn't public or
Mhm.
known for everybody. So, in my opinion, Chris Rock did nothing wrong. If you go to Don Wrinkles back in the old days, or even the Def Jam, which I love back in the early '90s,
Mhm.
comedians go out there, they warm up the crowd. They look at that weave, look at that guy's teeth, look at that suit.
Yeah.
Damn, what you walked out with that?
Mhm.
That's just normal. You go to
Yeah.
any comedy show. I have a friend of mine who's a stand-up comedian here in San Antonio. If you get front row, it's like the splash zone in SeaWorld.
Yes.
Something's going to happen. So you go in with that expectation. So Chris Rock did nothing wrong. I don't think he was being insensitive. I don't think he intentionally would make fun of somebody's illness if he knew. Chris Rock has never been that type of comedian.
And even if he did, I mean, you said G.I. Jane too.
Yeah.
Demi Moore in G.I. Jane is like the hottest, most badass bald woman you've ever seen in your life. So in a
Mhm.
way, it's almost like a backhanded compliment.
Yeah.
And again, we don't know intent unless Chris himself told us. We don't know intent. You can assume all day long. You can assume that he went out there and hates Jada Pinkett and just wanted to fucking ruin her night, or you could
Mhm.
assume the other direction. He's just she was there. He made a joke that seemed like the most lightest tap you could possibly do. And like I said, compared to Chris Rock's typical humor, that was a fucking raindrop in the ocean.
Mhm.
But yeah, really quick, and I want you to continue. We got two
Yeah.
super chats. Francisco seems like Will Smith's in a very toxic relationship. Also, read that the Oscars asked Will Smith to leave, but he refused. We'll talk about both of those.
Oh yeah.
And Caden, you described the situation perfectly with surreal. It was surreal because it was Will Smith. If it was anybody else, almost anybody else, you'd be like, I can see that happening. But Will Smith, you're like,
Yeah.
that's not what Will Smith does. Because, like I said, there's a lot of actors and celebs and Hollywood people out there that we all idolize for movies, but we know they're a little fucking nuts.
Mhm.
Will Smith has never been that. He's always been like, if anybody's likable as hell without even
Yeah.
trying, that guy. And so
He's
that
been
was
the cleanest.
weird. That was weird to see him do that.
Yeah.
Continue. I'm sorry.
No, it's cool. And then the next portion of the conversation is, did Will overreact? Now, I was a husband at one point.
Mhm.
You're a husband now. So I did this. I spoke about this in my podcast, and me and my co-host Eric, we differed on this, but we come from a different generation. Because in my generation, Gen X and before, we were told and brought up to that you always honored your wife's name. If anybody insulted her
Mhm.
or made her feel uncomfortable, you were the man to stand up. You took off that white glove and slapped the dude and demanded an apology.
Yeah.
That's what we were told to do, and that's how some of us are. And now my co-host in that conversation said Will didn't overreact. Somebody insulted his wife, and that's what you do as a husband. You protect the honor of your wife's name, period. And I'm like, okay, I'm the same way,
Mhm.
but this isn't at the fucking grocery store,
No.
at a quinceañera, or at a birthday party. This is at the Oscars. Your front row
To the world.
to the world. You have a comedian as famous as Chris Rock there. That is standard. It's not an insult. So a lot of people, I think, don't know or can't separate insult versus joke.
Yes.
There's two major differences. If a person, like, let me ask you this, just if you want to answer, it's fine. But if you were at a store and somebody verbally insulted your wife, we're different generations.
Mhm.
I would go up to him and confront him. I've pushed guys before in the past when I was younger. But what would you do?
I would like to think I would do the same thing. Obviously, it would depend on the situation, and I think my wife would be one of the first people to be like, "No, just let's go."
Okay.
She, I don't think she would want the, and you know what? She might be on him before I am. My wife's a tough chick. She was in the army, so I mean, there's that too. But
That's
yeah,
badass. Go.
I'm somebody that, yeah, I wouldn't play when it comes to that. Luckily, I've never had that situation happen. I mean,
Mhm.
I get hot headed enough when somebody says something about me that would be tenfold with my wife. But like I said,
Yeah.
I would assume, depending on the situation, especially if the kids are around,
Mhm.
um, I probably wouldn't have to get to that point, but
Yeah.
I would certainly have an emotional reaction to it. Yes.
Yeah. And I love that you said that, because I saw a TikTok of a woman saying this is what a good wife should have done, because it's his night. Will, like you said, for the past 20 years since Ali has been campaigning, one, to get more people of color at the Oscars, get more black people nominated for, Oscars as well.
Hmm.
Every movie he's done is chess to get him to that nomination and to win. He's been
Hmm.
doing this for over 20 years. Any wife would have been a good one. No, honey, sit down. Sit down.
Hmm.
This is your night. No, we're not going to do that. I
And
can't.
it is possible to, like, I'll be completely transparent. I
Yeah,
don't really care for Jada Pinkett Smith very much,
neither do
so
I.
it's very hard for me to give her the benefit of the doubt. It's
Mhm.
also possible that she didn't know what he was going to do, because until he
True.
actually struck Chris, I think everybody in the room, including Chris Rock, was just like, "Oh, what's he about to say?" Or he's going to
Yeah.
play off of it or whatever. I mean, Chris didn't guard himself, and that slap happened out of nowhere. It wasn't like he like lunged back. He walked up
Yeah.
and then it was just pop.
Pop. Yep. Like a quick
So go
sucker
ahead.
punching away.
Sorry. Mhm.
So that's just what I think a good wife would have done. Now, for
Mhm.
me, like, again, same generation as my co-host, I would not have done that. I would have been okay if I looked at my wife, she had a face.
Wait till
I,
commercial break, motherfucker. Wait till
I'd be
commercial
like,
break,
I
bud.
got it. Don't worry about it. We're not gonna fuck it up. And I
Mhm.
would talk to Chris in private,
Yeah.
like, hey, dude, my wife this was going on. She didn't take the joke nicely. I would like for you to apologize to her, man to man. That's what I would have done. I would not have ruined my career and legacy on my night after 20 years of busting my ass on an emotional idiot mistake.
Yeah.
And the fact that he wasn't arrested, security didn't come tackle him down, or they allowed him to get his Oscar at the end of the night and he got a standing ovation. It was so weird, man.
Yeah, it
It
was
didn't make any
uncomfortable.
sense.
And I've loved seeing all the different reactions in Hollywood, because you have some celebrities where I'm like, thank God they're human, like Jim Carrey. I
Yes,
don't know if you saw what Jim Carrey said, but he had
I
probably the
did.
most human reaction to it. And
Hmm.
he was just like, I was sickened by the fact that they gave him a standing ovation, that nobody escorted him out. He destroyed this night for everybody. And if I was Chris Rock, I would have been suing him this morning, because that clip
Yep.
is going to be a part of his legacy for the
Forever.
rest of his life. And that's
Forever.
absolutely true. And then you had other people that were just kind of, some people were defending Will, some people were, a lot of comedians were especially defending Chris. I mean, even
Oh, yeah.
Wanda Sykes, who was one of the Oscar hosts, was tweeting out that she was just mortified that nobody did anything about it. Now, this is weird. And I want your opinion on this because this is somewhat breaking. This happened maybe an hour or two before we went live. The Academy Awards released some press notes or whatever, a fucking press conference that they're going to be deliberating on this on April 18th. But they also added a little detail to it saying that, you know, in the moment, everybody scrambled. Everybody was kind of sitting far away from each other. We didn't know exactly how to do the situation, especially since 20 minutes from now, he's going to be getting his award.
Right.
That's what they've said since Jump Street. And now they've added in this detail saying that he was asked to leave, but refused.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And for one, I find it very odd that they waited 3 days to say that.
Mm-hmm.
It almost feels like saving face.
Yeah.
And they
Yeah.
just kind of they throw it in there too. It's not like a big part of the whole statement. It's literally just like one word is thrown in the middle of a sentence, like asked to leave but refused. But anyway, and so I'm not the conspiracy theory type, but it was very odd to me that if you asked the man to leave and he refused, why would you not have said that night?
Exactly.
So that's very odd. But
Mhm.
operating underneath the assumption that that's actually true, and for whatever weird fucking reason they decided not to say that until Wednesday evening, to me, that says a lot about your security at the Oscars.
Which
If
is
you just
shit.
go up and ask somebody to leave and they're like, no, okay, sorry, sir. And then two, which is one of the biggest things that people have been debating, especially us normal folks that don't have billions of dollars, it speaks a lot to his status. The fact that he's able to
Do that.
completely go against the rules and nobody will say shit. I mean,
I agree.
if Joe Blow, pick any cast member from Coda, they walk on stage and slap Chris Rock, they're gone.
Yeah.
It wouldn't even made the air because they would have been gone so quick they could have edited it out.
Mhm.
And Will
Nobody would have
Smith
known.
gets up.
Yeah.
First of all, you got people like Denzel Washington and everybody that I love and respect, by the way, but they're consoling him. Fuck Chris, let's go talk to Will.
Yeah.
And nobody does anything. He's allowed to watch the rest of the ceremony. He's allowed to get his award, give a speech, and stay for the rest of the time, get the standing ovation, everything like that.
And get
So
jiggy with it in
strange.
the after party.
And go to the after parties, yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's I think that's one of the main reasons why the Oscars have dipped in ratings so much over the years is because as social media has become just this life encompassing thing where we're literally seeing everything that everybody does, especially the elites in Hollywood and everything like that, that
Mhm.
I think the general public are tired of Hollywood being like levitated above the rest of us. Like the rules don't apply to us. We get to do what we want. We might get fined a little bit. Ezra
Mhm.
Miller can assault people and pay $500 and get out of jail, stuff like that. And you know, Will Smith can assault somebody in front of the world and get an award for it.
Yeah.
And so I think it's a weird thing tying the Ezra Miller thing to Will Smith. At some point, there needs to be just a fucking a consistent accountability thing.
Right.
Because it just, I mean, even when we're talking about WB, it's so like picky choosy who we decide to do whatever with.
Mhm.
And I don't know who would ever force them to do that. I mean, they're in their own little world, but it's just it's amazing to me that you've got things like that any of us that live in the real world
Mhm.
would probably never do because we know exactly what would happen. If I was having a conference at my old job and I walked up and smacked a manager, not only would I get arrested, but I would lose my job.
Mhm.
And I mean, there's so many things in an instant, not even a question. No
Yeah.
sympathy for you,
No
buddy.
doubt.
And it's just that's not the case here.
Yeah. It does speak to like the exceptions to the rule and just the luxury they have in doing these type of actions and decisions.
Mhm,
And just to kind of rewind a little bit, just from a husband's POV, from a husband's role,
mhm.
depending, and this is not for every marriage. This is not, I'm not speaking for every wife or every husband, but in some marriages, the wife does expect you to defend her honor when something like this occurs. Now,
Especially a
depending on your,
narcissist.
yeah, especially with her, and I'll get to her in a bit,
Oh yeah.
but depending on how you can handle yourself emotionally, most guys can de-escalate it with just words.
Mhm.
Some guys get physical. And if you don't go into action when something like this happens, in some marriages, especially for my generation, something's going to happen. One of them is the wife will give you the look, and every husband knows the look. It's nonverbal, but he knows what he needs to do. And if he doesn't do anything at that point, some women, old school women, will say, "You're going to let that man talk to your wife that way?" and then we're put on this spot where
The
we have to actually
doghouse.
do something, and that's when we use stupid shit. And I don't like that role. I mean, not the roles with relationships are not really popular, but there are some traditional people who prefer traditional roles. Not
Mhm.
the modern folks, but there's some that still abide by that. And my problem with that old school mentality, like I saw my dad punch out a guy who called my mom a name at one point, and he just went back to his table and drank a beer, and that was it.
Mhm.
Now, I mean, think about the assault charges and the true consequences that can happen to
Such
you.
a different time now.
Yes,
It's not as commonly just kind of shaken off.
you can't. You
Yeah.
can't do that. Because you can either get hurt, killed, arrested, and then for what? For pride?
Yeah.
So there's all these things. So now going back to Jada, she's not a saint. I personally, I can't stand her.
I'm the same way.
I
Yes.
can't stand her at all. And I've always been a fan of Will, going back to the '80s when he was just a rapper before the show.
He's the only rap artist I've ever bought albums from.
Yes, and
I
he
used
did.
to be in my room in between Alice Cooper and Metallica, getting jiggy with it. Da, na,
No,
na,
no,
na,
no.
na, na, na.
Did you ever get the My Nightmare on Elm Street? His Nightmare on Elm Street song?
No,
Yeah, he
no.
did it. Yeah, I'm surprised you didn't know
Ooh.
about that. Yeah, he did a Freddie rap song. Anyway, he's never done anything wrong. He's always been a good guy.
Yeah.
But Jada, what I really didn't like about her is she's been very vocal about her love for Tupac and how Tupac has meant the world to her from growing up as friends, as one of her true loves. And then we had the entanglement interview where she's more or
Fucking
less
Christ.
telling Will that, hey, I did this. And the reason I did this is because I didn't like making love to you, in a sense. She told Oprah that. She emasculated the guy, and he broke down and cried. And what do we do as a public? Like you just mentioned at the beginning of this live,
Made
we
him a meme.
ridicule him. We memed him.
Mhm.
He's a meme. He's a joke now, and that speaks to a lot to men's mental health. I think we need to take that a whole lot seriously because we're seeing everything here from Ezra to Will.
Yeah.
It's a critical topic that should be spoken to more.
And it's
And
something that I really wanted to hammer home when I did my video too, because I've certainly had my own struggles with mental health once in a while. I mean, every
yeah,
man does. When you have
we all
the
do.
whole weight of the world on you, when you're the provider and you got to worry about
The
even
cornerstone.
if your wife works, you feel like you got to be in charge. You're the coach. We got to do this. If the kids have injuries, or if they got to go to the hospital, or if they got to go to the doctor, or
Yeah,
something breaks in the fucking house. I mean, even little shit, it adds up. And
everything.
so, and all throughout our lives, guys are always told, suck it up, walk it off, be a
Cowboy up.
man, quit whining, quit crying. And so, while nobody wants a man to be sitting around crying all the time, there's certain truth to that about holding up a little bit of an image. We're taught from a very young age that you're not allowed to share your feelings. You need to internalize that shit, work it out on your own fucking quiet
Yep.
time. And
Yep.
for a lot of people, that can be okay, for depending on how much they have to deal with. Everybody has times where it gets to be too much. And I think that was an example of a man that was trying to keep the lid on the jar
Yeah.
for all of the shit you just said. I mean, his wife dragging him onto a Facebook fucking talk show, telling him, not that he didn't already know, but forcing him to sit there while she tells the world, I fuck other guys.
Yep.
And then he has to sit there and just grit his teeth and bear it and just sit there for the world.
Hmm.
And like, I'll
He
bring up the
could not.
picture again. Since then, he said he's not crying in this picture, but I don't give a shit if there's tears or not.
No,
That
it's
is a broken man.
yeah.
That is a
That's a
man who
man's heart and soul being broken. Absolutely.
emasculated. I mean, you literally, there's so many layers to it. Not only is it your wife, the person that you love most in the world, who's saying you're not enough, but also it's with his kid's friend that all this happened with,
Which is another topic.
and
The
which is a
double
whole
standard.
other topic in this. And then there's the whole thing like, now your kids know, along with the world, that your dad's a fucking chump in this marriage. I run shit. I do what I want,
Right.
basically. And every man, whether or not you idolize Will Smith or not, you lose a little bit of respect for him in that moment, whether or not it's his fault or not, because he looks
You
like the
do.
victim in this situation.
Look at the chat. Everyone's saying simp. Will's a simp, and that's what I've been seeing as well. But
Yeah.
again, she's even said that Will makes love to me like a woman. She said that, man, publicly. So think about all the disrespect. So when people say Will was honoring his wife's name, in respect, well, what the fuck has Jada been doing for the past 4 or 5 years?
If
She's not
that joke
respecting
was
him.
about Will's bald head, she would have laughed her ass off.
Yes, exactly. And again, let me just kind of share a private story. But I've been in toxic relationships where
As
you're
have I.
just you're totally, I mean, fucking totally head over heels over somebody, but you know that there's an ex in their past that you want to beat. Like, in other words, she's always talking about him and how
Hmm.
that was her love of her life. And you know what? I'm going to show you what kind of man I am. I'm going to show you with my love and all my actions that I'm better than him.
Yeah.
And you try for years and you're never living up to that. And it's a belittling, humiliating experience. And before you know it, you're doing the stupidest shit to win her over. And I can see Will for all these years trying to live up to Tupac's love,
Hmm.
doing anything he can to win that woman. And he's never going to win her because she doesn't respect the
He
guy.
became the king of the box office for years. Just won Best Actor. The motherfucker could create a second Earth, and it's not going to be enough.
Yes, man. That's a shame. My heart goes out to Will. What does it say?
Absolutely. We'll continue in a second. Desi says this country screams about mental health unless they are entertained by it. We can't pick and choose. Terrified this will end in tragedy for him. Me and my wife were talking about that. Like, this is a totally different situation, but like, think about how shocked all of us were when Robin Williams took his own life.
Yeah.
A man that spent his entire career making people have joy and laughing
Mhm.
and everything like that. And this is a lot more in your face than that situation. That was an entire shock, but you got a guy who has been publicly ridiculed partially by his own design, at least letting his wife do that. I mean, they put everything into the fucking public. But
Yeah.
you have a man who has just had his balls put in the cheese grater publicly for years now. And now the highest moment of his career, possibly his life, aside from maybe his children being born, is destroyed because he
Ruined.
had to do something for Jada.
No,
And if we woke up tomorrow and saw that Will Smith took his own life, suddenly all this conversation would
I
change.
was just thinking that today and I didn't tell anybody. So,
Yeah. All this conversation would change, and everybody that's making fun of him, making memes would act like they didn't.
can you imagine what he's gone through? I mean,
I don't want
just
to, to
no,
be honest with you.
let me share again. This is Rudy TikTok relationship guy. When I got
Mhm.
divorced, I was made the villain, and I didn't share what my ex-wife had done. So I took all. Give me. I'm the villain.
Yeah.
I lost all my friends that I had for 20 years. They were all gone. I was by myself.
Mhm.
Family turns on you, church turns on you, work turns on you because now you're the exile. We don't want to end up like you.
Yeah.
Oh, stay away from my marriage, man. That's bad juju. No, get away.
Mhm.
So you're exiled and left alone. You have nobody.
Mhm.
And it sucks because when men are going through, me speaking from personal experience, when you're going through the absolute lowest point of your life, nobody shows up.
Yeah.
You have to go through it alone. You know what your friends say? You got this, man. I know you got some things on your mind. Go ahead. We'll leave you alone, man. Don't worry about it. People ignore you, man. It sucks that happens.
Yeah.
And everyone goes to usually the females like, hey, let's get her ready and introduce her to other men. We'll take care of her, but everybody just throws the man out. It's the
Yeah.
most. If it wasn't for therapy, I probably wouldn't be here. I totally mean that. Therapy saved my life and my kids saved my life, but
Mhm.
it's the darkest journey, man, and it sucks.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't gone through anything like that, and I'm glad you did get therapy. Therapy, by the way.
Oh yeah, I still
But
go.
Oh yeah. But I've certainly been in some dark places. I mean, even going back to when I was a kid. I mean, when I had the whole thing. I mean, I've talked about it in podcasts before, but like my mom abandoned us at a very young age, and she kind of came back and forth, and eventually became a drug addict, and was always this toxic presence in my life. And so
Yeah.
there was plenty of times where uh things were just rough, and I was never I was always I had to grow up quick. I was always more mature than what my age should have been. I always had to help my dad. He was a single parent that, God bless him, had 4 kids and never complained about it, did all himself.
Wow.
And so he so many times where things were just rough or things just felt like, man, like, can we get a break here? And I was never the type to break down and cry or ask for help or, I need a shoulder to cry on. It was just I was a 10-year-old that had to have the maturity of a 15-year-old, or I was a 7-year-old that had the maturity of a 12-year-old, and just I kind of missed out on being a kid to a certain degree.
Yeah.
And you get into being an adult, and like I was in a very dark place last year, right before I quit my job and went full-time YouTube, because just it was miserable. Like
Yeah.
just this the burden of I have to wake up at 4 in the morning. I have to go spend 10 hours minimum at this place that makes me feel like I should put a fucking bullet in my brain,
Mhm.
and then come home, try my best to squeeze in something with YouTube that at least makes me somewhat happy, then try to squeeze in time with my kids and my wife, who all fight for my attention. and get dinner on the table, try to relax for a minute to maybe get 5 hours of sleep and start it all over again. And it was just that on repeat
How many years did
for,
you do that?
well, I mean, I worked full time and did YouTube practically full time for 6 years, the entire time that I've done the
Wow.
channel. But I was at this previous job that was kind of the darkest spot for 3 years, and it wasn't too bad the first year when I kind of had help. I was like, this kind of sucks, but I'll work through it. Eventually, I'll move up. They'll see that I'm a hard worker, and then they'll reward that, because why wouldn't they? And then the last year or so of that, where the crushing realization started to come in, like, it doesn't matter how hard you work, doesn't matter how much you bleed for this place.
Yep.
We don't fucking care about you. You can walk out in the street right now, get hit by a truck, and we'll have you replaced by the time you get to the hospital.
It's true.
And so there was a dark place where I don't think I would ever get to the point. I mean, thank God, knock on wood, that I never have a situation that changes it. But like, I don't think I would ever get to the point where I would be like contemplating taking my life or anything like that. But there was certainly moments where I would just sit there for moments and just be like, man, it would be easier if I just wasn't here.
Yeah.
And just weird thoughts like that. And so, yeah, just for regular old work shit, I can reach that point. I can only imagine when you have that paired with a marriage that is clearly the most toxic thing I've ever seen, with
Mhm.
the public eye and the public opinion and just being a joke everywhere for years. I mean,
It's
that
hard.
that whole marriage. I mean, you married a woman that it was blatantly obvious that she belonged to somebody else. Her heart belonged to somebody else, and you've known that, and you've carried that the entire time. You've had 2 children with her. You've built this
A
fucking
life,
Smith empire with her.
right?
She's only really relevant because she was married to you for so long. She's a talented actress and she's done some good stuff, but we're talking about totally different echelons here.
Yeah.
So the abilities that she has right now is mostly because of the things that you have built together. And having your whole marriage and all the weird things about it just sprawled out for everybody. The fact that she literally said that she didn't even think that her affair was a transgression. And I don't know if this was the same conversation that you were talking about, where you said that she said he makes love like a woman, but she had
Yeah.
Gwyneth Paltrow on there and all but said that he doesn't satisfy her.
Yep.
And
Ugh.
as private of a thing as that is, I don't think you can insult a man's, well, literally his manhood more than making that statement.
You tell a man that, it destroys him. It
Yes.
can destroy his
It
confidence for his
destroys
entire life.
him, and that becomes something that nobody forgets. If you're in the middle of a party and you have a fight with your wife and she's like, "Whatever, you got a little dick anyway." You think
Mm,
anybody is gonna ever forget that?
nope.
Even if they're your boy, they're always gonna think like, if we ever really get into a fight, that's coming up." You know
Yeah.
what I mean? It's just it's
That's something you can never take back. Ladies,
no.
again, don't ever, I don't care how mad you are, whatever he's done, don't ever say that, because that destroys a man
Yeah.
inside and out. He can't recover from that.
No, because
No. Of
every time after that, that's always gonna be in the back of his head, like, "Am I doing
course.
this right? We've
Mhm.
fucked 3,000 times at this point, but am I doing this right? Is this doing Are you faking it right now?" And it just then you we're not even gonna get into it, but you get all wrapped up in
We're
here and,
complaining 3 years, for 3
yeah,
years now you're saying that? It's just one of those things that, I think everybody knows that one special dagger that we have in relationships that we can, and that'll do it. But again, you can never take it back, and you can never truly heal from it. You can forget it. I mean, you can move on, but you'll never forget it.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
bad, man.
absolutely, and like you said, like, the public response to this man right here having his balls chopped off in front of the entire world is to take this image and make jokes out of it for 2 years.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing that's happening with this. Is It's
Mhm.
just tons of memes and jokes and everything like that. And tying back into what we were saying earlier about Bruce Willis, to where it was, if you're very just disengaged from it all, it's very easy to look at this situation and find the dark humor in it and immediately go to jokes. But you're making jokes about a man who is like crumbled on the inside.
Mhm.
You're making jokes about a man, which again, I'm guilty of, so I'm talking about myself. Like, he's pissing away his career and he's just the laziest person in Hollywood, and you
Yeah.
just have no fucking idea what this person is going from, because you're just so we're behind a keyboard, they're in Hollywood, we're so distanced, they're not human, they're something else.
Yeah.
And it just, like you said about mental health, like, of course, I'm not diminishing females' mental health. I think it should
Oh,
all be
yeah.
held in equal regard, but that is always the focus, is females' mental health. If you see a woman crying, everybody wants to help. Everybody, what's wrong? What do you need? What can I do for you? And
Yep.
like I said, when you see a man upset, And usually it doesn't go to crying, but you could see that they're internalizing something. There was a video going around, might have been on TikTok for a long time, where a guy was like, "Hey, you ever ask a guy if he's okay?" And he says, "I'm fine." He's not fine.
Yeah.
And that's true. I can't tell you
Mhm.
how many times my wife, "You okay?" "I'm fine." "I'm
Mhm.
fine" means nobody cares, so I don't want to get into it.
But also, like, men are fixers. Like,
Mhm,
ladies or anybody, you're talking to a guy, or telling somebody, a guy a problem, your husband a problem. We're thinking about a solution, try to make it better. That's just how we are. Sometimes we should just listen and let you vent. We get that, but sometimes that's how we're built.
mhm,
And a lot of times when we have our own problems, we don't like to vocalize it. So we do keep it. I mean, not only because we've been told throughout our entire life, fix it, shut up, cowboy up, man up. But, we want to fix our own problems. And I remember for me, before going to therapy, I didn't want to go because I thought I would be a failure, or be
mhm.
labeled as a failure, like I couldn't do it on my own, so I had to get help. And
Yeah,
I think a lot of men feel that way, but there's nothing wrong with asking for help. Just like if you were to get cut doing yard work and it's a pretty deep cut, you can tape it up with duct tape like in the horror movies we see, cover up
mhm,
the blood, but you still need some professional help to get that fixed and get it healed right. The
yeah,
same thing goes for your mental health. I mean, don't think you're a failure or a loser, or you couldn't fix it on your own. There's nothing wrong with asking for help when you need it. And I think that's something that I will acknowledge I had trouble with for 6 months before I broke down and said, I need help. So,
yeah. E Especially when you spend your entire life and that's your way of dealing with things, is just kinda bottle it up and, we'll worry about it in our thoughts when everybody's asleep tonight.
yeah.
And, I'm still at that point. Not that I struggle with things very often, but there's certainly I've had dark weeks, a couple of dark days, something happens or whatever, and, going along with the thing about men being fixers, you're also, at least traditionally, at least in my house, for the most part, everybody comes to you. What do we do?
Yep.
This broke in the house. This bill doesn't gonna get paid, whatever. What do we do? You're always the coach. And so whenever you're wearing that hat of I'm the one who has to decide and keep everybody mentally healthy in this house, you almost feel like you can't betray that image by letting everybody know that you have issues too.
Yeah.
And
You got to be the
uh,
leader, the cornerstone.
exactly, exactly. I can't show that there's cracks in the armor. You know what I mean? And that also has its own their own crosses to bear along with that. And so yeah, I don't know. It's just one of those things where, I mean, all three of the things that we're talking about now, kind of different ways, but also some of them tying into each other. It's just
Mhm.
you see these things happening, and quite often I see people just surface level. They're making jokes and memes, and I'm Team Chris, I'm Team Will, and Will should, or Chris should never say that about a woman, or Will should do this, and it's just like,
Mhm.
but what's the underlying thing to take away from all
What's
of
going
this?
on?
Because if you can really, I'm somebody that is a big proponent of stop letting Hollywood be your moral compass, because they're all kind
I
of
agree.
fucked up and they all just play by their own rules anyway. But if you can learn anything from other people's mistakes, what is it? And that was the big thing that I took away, was like, somebody needs to get this guy help. Like even on a totally unrelated thing. This is a guy that I do not like whatsoever. Somebody get fucking Kanye some help. Like you look at some shit that guy does, and it's just like, that is a guy that
You
is like,
lost, man. Yeah.
he's a couple of months away from an assault charge or a attempted murder charge or something, and it's always a joke. I mean, when he's sitting there and he's running for fucking president by telling people that Harriet Tubman didn't free the slaves, it's just like, can somebody get that guy some help? Because
Yeah.
something's not clicking up here. When you have so many people surrounding you all the time telling you that you're right and you have a great idea, and you're that fucks with you. You're
It
living in your
does.
own world.
And if I can add to that, well, real quick, there's a comment here, Disco Mutt. It says, "Is this a regular podcast? This is amazing." Well, just to let you know, I do have a podcast. It's called the
Mhm,
Gen X Podcast. Cody listens to it.
mhm,
We talk about things like this. We talk about divorce. We talk about depression. I give dating tips, telling my story of being married 16 years
mhm,
and losing everything and starting over and rebuilding what you see here, and having a beautiful girlfriend, and again starting over. So I share a lot of therapy lessons that I learned, real life stories. So I share a lot of this type of conversation there. So again, if
mhm,
you want to, I'm sure Cody will put the links. But it's the Gen X podcast. We do talk about that. But to your point, what can we learn from this? I think we should not be too quick to judge. For example, 3 weeks ago I was getting a haircut,
mhm,
and the girl was, in my opinion, being a total bitch.
mhm,
She was just like, "Hey, good morning." I like talking to whoever's cutting my hair. and she's just being stern. Yeah, whatever, short worded.
Mhm.
And I'm like, I'm sorry, I'll leave you alone. She goes, you know what? She's had the buzzers, bzz, turned it off. She goes, my brother was murdered last week,
Oof.
and I don't know how to deal with it, and I have to work.
Mhm.
So if I'm quiet, I apologize.
Mhm.
But that's what's going on, and let this be a lesson to like, don't judge anybody on their behavior because you don't know what's going on in their shoes. And I'm like,
Mhm.
I am so sorry. I apologize. You taught me valuable. You reminded me of a valuable lesson. It's not
Mhm.
just social media, but it's the person you're talking to or sitting next to in public. And that just kind of brought reality back to me and humbled me because thank you. She is right. You never know what the other person's going on. Somebody made a comment earlier that don't feel sorry for Will. He's got everything. I've known people who make six figures or more, have a beautiful house in the best area of their city, have a beautiful wife, and they or a beautiful, good looking husband, kids, everything they want, and they are the most loneliest people in that bedroom
Mhm.
because the person next to them is so cold and doesn't give them the love that they feel they deserve, and they are lonely. Imagine being in a house with everything physical around you, kids, and you still feel lonely. So don't judge a person based on what they own or have. Not every situation is perfect. It all comes down to the companionship and the relationship you have with your spouse. That's what it
Dude.
all comes down to. I don't care money or not. If you have love, true
Mhm.
love, and you can communicate, but not only communicate, but you can actually comprehend and listen, you're good. I mean, that's what you want. That's the foundation of a successful, happy life in marriage.
You got a big enough hole in your heart, man. There's no amount of jet skis in the world you can fill it with. I
Yep.
mean, there's certainly a certain amount of truth to like, oh, boo hoo, you have billions of dollars. But there's also the other side of it too, that the richest man in the world can still be hurt.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the biggest thing. Now I will ask you because we didn't talk about this. So the Academy, whether or not you believe the statement they left today about he was asked to leave and refused. After this happened, there's been a lot of different suggestions. There's been things that they have voted on and haven't quite decided on yet.
Yeah.
What do you think the appropriate consequence, the appropriate response is for Will Smith?
Well, I don't think they should take his Oscar
I don't either.
because if you look at Roman Polanski, he still has his, I believe. And if you look at,
That's one side of it. If you're gonna take his, you better fucking open up a closet somewhere because you got a lot to go get.
yeah. And who was the producer, the guy who was arrested in prison?
Weinstein. I
He's
mean, you
got
got
all his Oscars
Kevin
still.
Spacey's got one, doesn't he? I mean, there's
Yeah.
you could probably have a fucking laundry list of people that's like, okay,
I think there should be maybe, of course, Chris should press charges and not sue him because this is nothing that's going to go away. People are
hmm
always, like you said, are going to remember this. This is history. It's never going to go away. I don't think no one should cancel him. That was one of the first TikToks I posted. Is like Will Smith has been a great guy. He's never been in trouble. I don't think he should be canceled. But
yeah,
what he did was he overreacted and he committed assault. That's never an answer.
yeah,
Um, so I don't think his Oscar should be taken, but I think something appropriate, like some sort of like charges and maybe a 5-year ban from the Oscars, is something that would be appropriate to appease the PR group, the people out there. I think that is within reason and nothing too permanent because the guy
yeah.
made a mistake made an emotional, horrible mistake.
And
Let's
it's
not
not a
crucify
history of
him.
it. It's not a
Yeah.
history of it. It's not like he's slapping people left and right at award shows.
Yeah.
So that's why it was so shocking. That's part of the reason why it's been talked about so much for 3 days is because it's Will Smith.
I know.
If it was somebody that if it was, Shia LaBeouf got on stage and smacked them, we would just be like, oh, of course. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
But yeah, I'm pretty much in agreement with you. I think taking his Oscar away is pretty extreme. He got the Oscar for his work in a film. I think that would be tragic. I mean, I don't know if that would be the punishment fit in the crime at all. I'm not the person to make that judgment, but that's just my call. Um,
Let me ask you this: can you separate the artist from the person?
it depends. Most times I can. And it also depends on how much I know going into it, because one of the biggest examples for me is Jeepers Creepers,
Okay.
which is one of my favorite horror films of all time, like easily top 25.
Okay.
And the details about the director,
I think you told me that he was a
child
child.
molester. Yeah,
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
molested one of the kids on his first film, and the details he got charged for it. He did his time. The time, I mean, everybody can have the debate all they want about whether or not the time was really kind of insulting for the crime, but then again, that's the justice system for you. He did
Yeah.
his time. He got out. He started working again. Made Jeepers Creepers. I didn't know until after Jeepers Creepers 2 was out, the details of this guy. By then, I've already had 10 plus years of loving this film.
Yeah.
So despite the fact that he did possibly the most unforgivable thing you can do, especially as a father,
Yeah.
I never think about that when I watch Jeepers Creepers. I just think about, man, I love this fucking movie. And it's a debate every single time whenever I talk about my favorite films or when I reviewed the films or when they got this trailer coming out for the fourth one that he's not involved with. And they're like, but it's still lying in his pockets. I don't, you always going to have that debate. But that's the big one for me to where that, despite it being the most unforgivable thing for me, at least one of, I can easily separate that. I can't think of an example where there's certainly some things where like, I can see an actor or somebody saying something that just really pisses me off or really
Mhm.
rubs me wrong that makes it hard for me to enjoy them in a movie.
Mhm.
Like Jamie Foxx is one that I have a hard time with. I'll be honest about that because there was an
Okay.
interview somewhere where I read, and again, tone is everything. This was a text interview, so maybe he was joking. I still think it's a funny joke, but he was doing a press run for Django Unchained. That he made a joke about, like, what's the best thing about this role, or what do you enjoy about this? And he's like, well, I get to shoot a bunch of white people,
Mhm.
paraphrasing, but that was kind of his response. And I'm like,
Yeah.
you're probably trying to be funny, but if a white guy ever said that,
You
then
can't.
the shoe was on the other foot.
Yeah, you can. That's a double standard as well. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's been hard for me to enjoy him in roles ever since that, for even just saying something. So that's another weird example where I can watch a movie with a child molester directed it, and because I watched it for so many years before that, but Jamie Foxx says something that's pretty shitty, and I'm like,
Yeah.
glad you got killed in that one movie. You know what I mean? It's just
Yeah.
it's weird. So it depends. Would I be able to watch Will Smith movies from now on? Absolutely.
Yeah. And for me, I grew up loving Bill Cosby.
Hmm.
And I loved his
Yeah,
Bill
that's a hard
Cosby
one.
himself stand up. I know what he did. He's a horrible person, but I can separate what he did. But there's the talent, and then there's
Mhm.
the person. I
Kevin
mean, if you
Spacey's another one. I will never not
he
watch
creeps me
Seven.
out, dude.
I will never not watch The
Yeah,
Ref. I will never not watch. I mean, any the Negotiator. He's done some fucking phenomenal movies that I love, and it's
Baby
easy for
Driver.
me to watch it, think about it for a second, and then quickly just watch the rest of the movie and be fine.
Yeah, he creeps me out. Some of those videos that come out right before someone's dead or right after, it's too on the nose, and the fact that he's not under investigation, that just speaks
And he's
another.
kind of played it up. Like, didn't he do a video where he was in character, kind of acting
Yes.
like, "Oh, I'm making my return soon," and it's just like, dude, do you realize like
Yeah,
what you're accused of?
it's not good. But some people can't. Like it's they make the mistake, erase everything they've done, banish them for life. Like somebody said here, ban Will from the Oscars forever. I'm like, no, 5 years tops. And then he's allowed back in. I mean, permanent? No, I don't think that's
And I think a lot of people don't realize too how much of a blow that is to somebody in his spot, because you might look at that and be like, "Oh, he can't go to the award show for 5 years." Fucking slap on the wrist. But you got to think about the business side of it. And
mhm.
especially now that he's in this phase of his career where he's going for more of that prestige film shit, nobody's going to hire him for 5 years when they know that, well, we can't get a best actor award if we hire Will, so let's give this to Jamie Foxx. You know what I mean? Or that's very real. So that would fuck up his career for a little bit there. And then
Yeah.
are other award shows going to follow suit, and they're going to be like, oh shit, he can't go to the Oscars? Well, we're certainly not going to give him a Golden Globe or whatever. So yeah, I don't know. The big thing for me is with him and Chris. I think that's the most important thing, is like, what is Chris owed for literally being humiliated in front of the world? And now this guy who is one of the
Yeah.
funniest people to ever walk the earth is now going to have this moment where he got bitched in front of the entire world for the rest of his career. And
And
that's
I heard
always
they've been
something.
friends for years. So
Yeah.
that's another odd thing. They've known each other. I mean, they both surfaced. I mean, well, maybe a few years more, but they've been big since the 90s. So they've known each other. And the fact it's like a friend, I think that's maybe why Chris was so laughing and just, while
Hmm.
Will was walking up to him because they've known each other for years. It's so odd, man.
Yeah. Well, his
It's so odd.
body language and everything, you're just like, it's Will. He's going to go up. He's going
Yeah.
to make a joke, or he's going to hug him, or what? Oh, that
Yeah.
can't be real. That can't be real. And that's what I'm saying. Like, if it was anybody but Will Smith, I think there would have been a lot less question about, was that a joke?
Yeah.
Will doesn't do that. And I've had a lot of people too where they're like, we finally saw the real Will Smith, and I'm like, or you just finally saw the lid come off the jar. And
Yeah.
we all have those moments. How many times have you seen somebody where they're a regular rational person where they just have a fucking week from hell and they just blow up at a cashier
Lose
or
it.
something like that?
Yeah. We
And
saw
so
his
it just
breaking point, not the real Will Smith. We saw his breaking point.
Yeah, I don't think that was in response to the joke. And even earlier on in the ceremony, they made a joke about his marriage. So he knew. It's just like that's the first thing everybody's going to go to now when they joke about Will Smith. It's like, your wife's fucking dudes,
Yeah.
and that was it's that fact that makes me respect Chris Rock all the more because of how much he kept his composure and just
I would have lost it, man.
kept his. Yes,
I
I
would
mean
have
your
lost
first instinct as a man is to hit back.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if he's a little bit bigger than you or not. You're like, I'm not going to be a bitch in front of the whole world,
No.
let alone a couple people at Walmart.
Yeah.
So yeah, to not hit back for one, but not even to hit back verbally. Because like I said, that moment, if you watch the clip where he's just like, oh,
Mhm.
I could, ooh, you
Oh,
could just
yeah.
see his mind. He's like, he's got 19 bits in his head right now, where he's just like, oh man, I'm gonna feel that slap until August. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Anything
See?
like that.
That was good. That was good.
Yeah, yeah, anything. You know what I mean? In a second. And it's
Yeah.
like, oh, you thought that was bad, motherfucker? Boom! Just take the lid off. And he could have done that easily. And I wouldn't have faulted him for it, but he kept his composure, walked the fuck off stage, and has stayed off of social media about it. And like I said, I can't wait to see the cell phone footage of his show if he brings it up, because that would almost be the best revenge. Not that I'm hoping for this, because I hope everybody just kind of
Yeah.
figures it out. But like if his tour just becomes into like the Jada roast for the next 8 months,
Can you imagine?
oh man, just opens up every night
Oh,
with like, oh
man.
yeah, so yeah, so it made me respect him so much more, because I know he was going out of his way to go beneath his level of comedy to give that GI Jane joke. When
Yeah.
you got a guy like that who
That's a
literally is a
layup in comedy jokes. That's
dude,
so easy, dude.
that's something just to get dead air out of the way while you think of something better or to
Yeah.
move on to the next joke. You got a guy who's literally a pioneer of stand-up comedy that he knows that is a weak joke. He knows that is
Mhm.
like that's a knock joke. You know what I mean? It's nothing.
Yeah,
And that's part of
exactly.
the reason why it's such a weird conversation, because if he really had like a really like fucking zinger for her,
Yeah.
that would change the tone of the conversation slightly. But because it was just so innocuous, it was just like, dude, for that, he even said, he's like, dude, it was a fucking GI Jane joke. Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
It was,
It was so dumb, man.
yeah.
Total overreaction. Somebody mentioned Martin Lawrence in the chat. Do
Mhm.
you remember Martin Lawrence when he had his breakdown?
No.
Like, yeah, a few like 10, 15 years ago, he had a mental breakdown and he was like running naked in the streets.
Oh
Something
wow.
happened. I don't know.
News to me.
Yeah,
Tell me
look it up.
more.
It happened. I don't know when, but
Bad boys, bad boys.
it happened before part 3.
Oh,
I know
okay.
that. It happened before part 3. We're all curious how his he had like a mental breakdown is what happened. He had to
Mhm.
be in the hospital for quite some time, but he, something's going on with him.
Yeah.
And that same era, remember Britney Spears shaved her head and everyone's making fun of Britney. She had a mental breakdown. So again,
Yeah.
people when they break, we make memes out of them. We make fun of them.
Yeah.
It's heartbreaking, man. That shouldn't be the case.
It's because we're in our world and we see them in their world. They, from our perspective, they have everything. They have money, they have power, they have limos and fucking awards out the ass and all this stuff. So when you see them hurt like we hurt,
Yeah.
people like to shine a light in it. They're like, "Ha, see, you are fucking human." It's like 300. You can bleed, bitch. You know what I mean? I think that's where people's response to that comes from. But there's times for that, and there's even times where it's earned, I think.
Mhm.
But there's also times like this where it's just like, guys, like I said, like somebody needs to get the dude help.
He needs help. And like
He
you said
needs help, and
earlier,
he's not going to help himself. If he was going to leave Jada, he would have already done it. Like it,
I don't
and
think
I'm
he
not trying to put
can.
all the blame on her. It certainly was his choice to get up there, but it's just, I don't think anybody that can see can look at that relationship and say she's in control. She
Yeah.
calls the
She has no
shots.
respect for him. None
Clearly,
whatsoever.
clearly, and that's something that's transparent as fuck whenever you're the outside looking in, as you could just look at that and you're just like, just body language alone, you're like, you're not the apple of her eye. Sorry, Will.
It
And
it ain't you, man. It
I
ain't you.
commend the man for staying with her for what, 22 years, having kids with her, trying the best to be, what did he say in his speech, the vessel of love and all that kind of stuff. But
It was
it's
so cringe, man. I don't even I remember watching it, but I was like, I couldn't listen to it because it was so
not
awkward.
only not only that, I had it built up for me because in Twitter I saw somebody post, they were like, oh, like that speech almost takes it all away. It's so heartfelt and so raw. And then I watched it and I was like, maybe it's raw, but it's not like raw in a captivating way. It's raw in like a awkward, like uncomfortable
Yeah.
way, because he's trying to have a speech to thank people for this film. At the same time, he's trying to give this half-assed apology, which never mentioned Chris Rock, by the way. And at the same time, he's trying to like fuse them together. Like, I was so caught up in the King Richard character that I had to protect my family. And it's like,
Yeah.
dude, he wasn't throwing rocks.
Yeah.
Fucking said a joke.
Yeah.
And so it's just it was very weird. And so yeah, the whole thing, I don't
It-
know. It's just it's
I hope we all walk away with not only just mocking. I mean, let me rephrase that. I'm sorry. I hope we don't just walk away with it like we normally do and mock it and make it a meme and
mhm,
share videos that are just making fun of the situation. I mean, there's a laugh there, yeah, but let's kind of take a moment to step back and realize, like with Ezra Miller and with Smith, there's something going on in their personal lives that's driving them to either alcohol or will erupting. They're
mhm.
human. Everybody's human. Yeah, they have everything, but let's kind of show some empathy here. And I know this is a tough ask, but not be part of that crowd, the cancel culture. It's so I hate the fact that you can make one mistake like Will did out of you're breaking down and you're not yourself. You're not thinking straight, but you can make one mistake and everyone's immediately just wanting to just ruin you, wipe you out from existence. It
What I
shouldn't
hate
be that.
about that is the hypocrisy, because there's not a single person watching this. There's not a single person that watched the Oscars that have not had at least one of those moments.
We've all been there.
It's like, how many fucking skeletons do you have in your closet?
Right.
And that's what I hate about it. There's things that people can do, Harvey Weinstein being a prime example, Bill Cosby being a prime example, where there's no coming back from that.
Yeah, you're done.
But that it's gone too far to where, like you said, you can make one mistake. You can even make a mistake that was in the past. Look what happened to James Gunn. He makes a bunch of
10
stupid
years
ass
ago.
tweets,
Yeah.
which were admittedly fucking weird, very odd humor that I would not like. But 10 years ago, and it's like, oh, you did that thing one time 10 years ago, you're done. And it's just like,
Yeah.
all the
It,
people that want to cast that fucking gavel down on Twitter, it's like, let's look into every day of your life. You've never said anything stupid. You've never done anything shameful. You've never done one thing that you don't regret. I can tell you right now, if I had a camera following me around every day of my life for
when I
fucking
was a
32
kid,
years,
oh my God.
you know
Yeah.
how many things I regret?
Yeah, exactly.
You know how many times I've said something stupid that I thought was funny in the moment, or I wasn't thinking. I mean, sometimes words come out before your brain even realizes it.
Hmm.
You deserve to have your whole life stripped away for that one mistake. It's just like, not only that, but where does the forgiveness come in? Where does the growth as a person come in?
Hmm.
The whole
I
point of
agree.
punishment is to motivate somebody to realize they've done something wrong, and so that they can better themselves to not only not do that again, but understand why that's a problem and grow as a person so that they don't slip down that slope again. And if the only reaction is just to strip everything away from them for that one mistake, they're not going to make that journey.
Yeah. And we're not making progress either. And what I hope that doesn't happen, because Dave Chappelle was canceled last year for the transgender joke, right? But
Mhm.
he's a comedian. In my opinion, nothing is off limits. If you can make fun of God, religion, the president, the queen,
Yeah.
anybody, I don't care who you are or who you claim to be, you're not off limits with when it comes to comedy. Comedy, I grew up in the era of Mel Brooks.
Mhm.
I love that type of satire, especially Blazing Saddles. I've said this many times on my channel. It's my favorite comedy of all time. I absolutely love it.
Mhm.
And I don't want our society to start chopping away from comedy. Like, all right, now you can't make fun of women who are bald because you don't know what's going on. That's what comedians do.
Yeah.
Everyone has to have that sense of humor again. We can't take that away because if we do that, it's going to be in a place I don't want to be in. I mean, I don't
No.
want that taken away from us. We can't have that go away.
We're already heading down that road. I haven't seen a good comedy as far as movies go. I haven't seen a good comedy in probably 5 years. I think the last one that I legitimately liked was, The Big Sick. And every
Yeah.
year I used to have, like, 2 of the comedies are among my favorites, but it just, like, you just don't have them anymore, because you look at all your favorites of all time, and it's like, can't do that joke anymore.
Yep.
Ace Ventura, can't have that movie anymore. I mean, it's just like,
The last great one for me was Tropic Thunder.
there you go. That's even farther back, 2008. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I'm with you. I think I said on Twitter, it was something along the lines of, every joke worth telling is going to offend somebody somewhere on some level. That's
Mhm.
the point of comedy, is to kind of confront the uncomfortable. If you take that away, kiss it goodbye. Unless you're going to sit up there and pay $150 to watch Joe Rogan tell knock knock jokes, you're done. There's nothing else you could say. because
Mhm.
every joke that he made, he could joke about the Kardashians. Oh, but it offends Kim Kardashian. We can't do that. He could joke about Trump. Oh, but it offends half the country. Can't do that.
Right.
And it just once you start putting these little fucking caution tapes, can't go there, guys. And like you said, it kills comedy. And a lot of times people don't understand the intent with it. Like I'll be transparent here for a moment because we talked about this before. It was maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago where you sent me a video of that truck. What did it say? There was a truck that had something spray painted on it or something like that.
I forgot, man. I did. I'm
It was something really funny, but
Mhm.
anyway, Rudy was driving around and there was a truck that had something
Oh, I
like
said
spray.
Nissan. Nissan. It was spelled like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
something or
So it
something.
was a pickup truck that said Nissan, just spray painted in black against the back of it.
Yeah.
And I was laughing and I sent him a voice message. It was something about like it was probably a redneck or something out there in Texas. And you were like, "No, he's Mexican. He's one of mine."
One of mine.
And,
Yep.
yeah. And so I came back and I was just like, "Damn, I would have never known because he didn't have 45 family members in the back." And I was just joking around because me and Rudy are really close. We're cool. And I was like, "I'm kidding. I love you. I love you." And you were like, "Dude, I'm the Mel Brooks generation. I don't give a fuck. That's funny as shit."
Yeah.
And so that's again because you know the intent. You know
It's
I'm
a
not
joke.
racist or I
Yeah.
wouldn't be friends with you. I mean, you know that I'm not trying to insult anybody. It's just here's a
It's
laugh.
jokes.
You know what I mean? And so exactly. And so
Yeah.
and there's some of the best jokes of all time are offensive as fuck.
Mhm.
The perfect timing. Norm
Yes.
Macdonald is not somebody that I particularly have a huge fondness for.
I love him.
I love Dirty Work, and I've certainly loved some of the movies that he's been in. I think his stand-up comedy is a little dry for my taste, but my favorite joke of all time came from Norm Macdonald,
Oh, yeah?
and it
I gotta hear it
involves I can't do it, but
now.
that's
Okay.
my point.
Mhm.
The punchline involves the F word regarding homosexuals that we're not supposed to say anymore. And so it's
Yeah.
extremely offensive for a certain demographic. So it's a joke that if you know the intent and you're not somebody that gets offended, it's the funniest fucking joke I've ever heard in my life. And it's
Yeah.
not really even at the expense of gay people. It's just I would have to tell the joke, but I can't. I could
Yeah.
tell it to you off air.
Okay.
But but
But
that's
one of
my point. If we go down that road, jokes like that are gone.
Yeah. And I mean, think about Rodney Dangerfield,
Mhm,
Sam Kinison, Richard
mhm.
Pryor, Eddie Murphy, all those old jokes. Eddie Murphy Raw. I hear is like people wanting to cancel Eddie Murphy Raw
And
because he does talk.
there's certainly some jokes that age poorly that you can look at. I mean, he
Yeah.
was talking about AIDS and everything like that, like that whole thing back in the where only gay people had AIDS, like they were
Yeah.
just going to rabid and put it around the world. There's things like that that certainly don't age very well. And now after decades have passed, he's like, man, like some of those bits I can't, it's
Yeah.
hard for me to listen to. But there's also some. I mean, perfect example is like Kevin Hart, where they said you can't
I
host
don't
the
think he's
Oscar.
funny. I don't think he's funny, dude. He's never made me laugh.
That's fair. That's fair.
Mhm.
But the joke that everybody was up in arms about when he was supposed to host the Oscars is a genuinely funny joke because even though do you know the joke I'm talking about?
Was it regarding homosexuals or something like that? I don't
It's a
remember.
joke about his son, and he's
Mhm.
like, "Kids don't know any better, and so kids do gay shit." Basically,
Mhm.
the punchline of the joke. So he's like, "My son, I look over, my 3-year-old kid is on some kid's ass like this," and I'm like, "No, stop! That's gay." That's his whole punchline. But the punchline of the joke is that he's insecure,
Yes.
and that's the intent of the joke is that I'm so insecure about my own self that I'm trying to prevent this. And
Mhm.
anybody that can look at nuance knows that. But the people that want to just take it at surface value, you made a joke about gay people. You can't ever host the Oscars. And he did the professional thing. He's like, yeah, I'm not going to apologize because I've apologized for it 1,000 times. If I do it again, it's not going to be enough again. So I'm just not going to host the Oscars. And he's absolutely
Good
right
for
because
him.
that whole driving force for that culture is just we got to get more. And as soon as you give them a little bit, well, we need a little bit more than that. And it's
Yeah.
never enough.
Never.
And but that's a good point right there. Like even that joke, it's well intended. That the entire point of the joke, the entire message to take away is that his own insecurity keeps him or has that little bit of homophobia.
Mhm.
That's the point.
Yeah.
Can't have that lesson anymore because some people might be offended by it, and it's just like, well, fuck, check that off the box now.
Yeah.
And
And,
yeah,
Bill Burr, someone said Bill Burr. I love
Bill
Bill
Burr
Burr.
is him and
He's
Joe
hilarious.
Rogan are my favorite comics,
Yeah.
and they battle it out. I'm seeing Bill Burr this month actually in a
Oh,
couple
that's
weeks.
actually cool,
Yeah,
dude. That's awesome. Get this, every Monday morning, I've been doing this for a couple years now. You know, they have Norm Macdonald clips
Hmm.
on YouTube, like 30-minute clips. I play it, and he is the only comedian that I will bust out laughing out of nowhere because he has a certain cadence in his telling
Yes.
and the punchline. I
It's that
crack up,
Boston
dude.
smartassness.
Yes, I can't help it, man. That's why I love him. I have to see it all the time. And there's some jokes I've heard tons of times,
Yeah.
but I still
I'm
laugh.
I'm the same way. I listen to his podcast and he does it to me too. Cause like I used to, when I was working at my job that I left before I did this full time, I would have my earbuds in and I would be like on the floor, like working on something on the plane or whatever. And I would be listening to his podcast and I would just bust out laughing out of
Yeah.
nowhere. And nobody knows what I'm laughing at, but he has a certain, like you said, a cadence to how he does it. That just, it's so quick. Like he
Mhm.
was taking a question. He takes these questions like relationship advice or whatever.
I
And
know
there
what
was a,
you're talking about. Yeah.
yeah, there was a question that he had to where somebody asked that he's like, "Hey, I cheated on my wife with her sister like way back
Mhm.
the first year of our marriage. It's been years, but I finally broke down and told her." And he gets to the end of the end of the letter. He's like, "Oh God, I hope you don't have a brother." And I was just like, ah, like I just laughed because it just that was not where my head went, but he took it there, and it was just
Mhm.
so fucking hilarious.
He's
And
one of the
yeah,
best, man.
oh yeah, he's
He was my favorite since the 90s.
yeah.
When he did the Weekend Update, that was my
Mhm.
favorite segment in the 90s.
Yeah. He's one of those guys where it is, and again, this kind of goes to our whole approach and our attitude towards comedy. Just like with Joe Rogan, I like the comics that don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
It's like you can't cancel me because I don't care. He
Yeah.
obviously he doesn't have hate in his heart. He's not going to go out there and just say the most ruthless shit ever. But if he thinks it's funny, it's
Mhm.
fucking coming out. And I like that approach. I like that approach because
That's
I agree
comedy.
with you. I think that, to a certain extent, everything should be fair game when you're having comedy.
Yeah.
If you can't
Nothing's
make
off
fun of
limits.
one thing, then you can't make fun of the other. If you can't make fat jokes, then you can't make, you know, women jokes, black jokes, white jokes. And I think there's something to be said too about being able to laugh at yourself. And there's a reason why I think
Yes.
it's fair game because if, I can listen to Eddie Griffin do the white guy voice and laugh my ass off as a white guy. I don't get offended because I'm like, fuck, he's right. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
it's so funny. But then I think it's equally as funny when you get Bill Burr that'll tell a black joke and he's married to
Yeah.
a black woman, so he's allowed to. It's
Yeah.
yeah. And so it's funny because whenever you get true comedy, it's not mean spirited because most of the things they're poking fun at is true.
I agree. I
And
agree.
that's kind of the thing that they're holding the mirror up to things that we all know, but they're doing it in a funny way because you
Mhm.
don't acknowledge it, don't realize it, or don't want to look at it, and they make you look at it, and then it's funny.
You just described Blazing Saddles and why I love it because he
Yeah,
makes racism and the words that they use a joke and makes the people who use them look like idiots.
yeah,
So it's satire.
hmm,
That's all it is, and I think that's beautiful because it just highlights, "Hey, this is us. That's really what we're doing, and that's
hmm.
what makes it genuine." And we need more of that. That can't be taken away.
I'm gay as fuck. Please make all the gay jokes you want. Funny as funny. There we go. He said it's okay.
Oh God. Okay, we have a pass.
Yeah. But yeah, that's the important thing is like people need to be able to look to laugh at themselves. Obviously, there's limits. Like
Yeah.
if Jada Pinkett Smith was legitimately like in therapy for how bad this thing was, the alopecia was,
Like
then
yes,
yeah, we can have a different conversation about it. She's on record on Instagram 7 days previous saying, I don't give a fuck if you like this bald head or not because I love it.
I saw that
And
too.
maybe she's playing defensive with that. Maybe she's projecting with it. I believe it because she's a
Mhm.
confident woman. She's a beautiful woman, whether she's got hair or not. She's got all the money in the world. And if she really was that touchy about it, there's a lot of very convincing wigs out there.
Yeah.
But, if there's something that legitimately hurts you, that's one thing, but you could always have the conversation. You know what I mean? Like my buddy Brian Lomax, very religious guy, very faith-based guy.
Mhm.
There's been times where my buddy CP has made little jokes or whatever, and CP fully lighthearted, no ill intent whatsoever, and we know that. And he's had times where Brian's been like off air, like, "Hey man, like, don't go there with the jokes, just for me." Okay, yeah, absolutely, and it's off the table, and that's all it takes.
Yeah.
That's all it takes. Like, that joke that I made about the truck with you, if you were like, "Hey, man, like, that's just
No, I
I
laughed. It
love
was
you, but
funny.
that's a little bit much." I would've been like,
Yeah.
"Oh, never again. No problem." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's just, yeah, that's something above all of the life lessons that we're having, that's something that I really hope a lot of people take away with too, is just like, we got to preserve comedy. We got to save comedy. Like, we can't keep going down this road where everything is off limits, because we're going to end up with nothing. And then what a joyless world it will be without comedy.
No kidding, man. No kidding. I mean, it can't be like, I'm not going to repeat everything you just said, so I'm just going to shut up. But you're absolutely 100% right.
Yeah.
Chris Rock did nothing wrong.
Exactly.
Did nothing wrong.
Yeah. I hope he does it again. I hope he hosts the Oscars next year.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah. Before I even say anything, anybody approaches this stage, I'm knocking your ass out.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so real, man. But yeah, I heard somebody said it was fixed and staged. And like you said, what is the benefit? I mean, okay, Chris Rock on one end, his sales spike up, but then Will Smith, he loses everything he's worked for the past 20 years. Where's the gain on both sides? So
yeah,
it's staged. It doesn't make sense to me.
And there's a lot of the crowd that, aside from his sales skyrocketing, there's a lot of the crowd that now are making fun of him because he's the little guy that got bitch slapped.
Yeah, that's so bad, man.
And that clip's gonna live forever. No matter what you say, you got bitch slapped on live TV by Will Smith. And that's my whole thing with that whole conspiracy. It was fake. This is Hollywood trying to distract us from the war, or this is Hollywood trying to boost ratings for next year.
Mm-hmm.
How does that make sense?
There was a
on
guy
the Chris Rock end, it doesn't even make sense. But like you said with Will Smith, hey Will, come here.
Mm-hmm.
So I know this is a big night for you. I know this is what you've been working towards for your entire life, for your entire career. You won, by the way. Don't tell anybody. But I know that this is the moment that you have worked towards that is going to be the highlight of your career, one of the premier moments of your life. But our ratings are kind of in the shitter. So can you fuck all that up for us? Just be a buddy.
We'll make it up to you. We'll make it up to you.
What the fuck? No. Yeah, exactly. And it just his reputation in Hollywood, you got half of Hollywood praising him, the other half saying they're disgusted by him. And there's no gain. There's no amount of money you can give the guy to pull that off, to make it be real. And I'm sorry, like, it just doesn't make any sense. I'm with everybody. Sometimes I think that the elites out there do distract us, and I think they do it very well. I don't think this is one of those times.
Those random, illogical things that happen. And you know who no one's talking about? The guy who won Best Documentary and went on the stage right after all that happened. His moment, all his years of working on that documentary are thrown out the shitter, man, because no one remembers him. Everyone's focused on before and after. That sucks. If my moment was ruined by Will Smith, I'd be pissed.
I mean, let's be honest. Everybody's night was ruined. Nobody's talking about who won shit.
Yeah, that's true.
Not even Will Smith.
Yeah.
Nobody's talking about that. Nobody's talking about Best Picture. Fuck all the Oscars that Dune won. Who gives a shit? Let's talk about that slap. That's the only thing that's come out of this. Like, I think it was John Campia. It was one of the people that I watched. Just kind of, I was trying to gauge everybody in the spheres. Like, what are they saying about it? Because sometimes you get some crazy opinions. And he opened the show by saying he had like 175 emails about the Oscars, and only 2 of them were actually about the Oscars.
Damn. Well, there you go.
And that just tells you nobody that gives a fuck about the Oscars is talking about the Oscars. And people that don't give a fuck about the Oscars are talking about the Oscars because of that slap. That's it.
It's crazy, man. Joe
Rogan will have Chris and Will on his podcast next week, and it will all be over. I would literally pay money to watch that podcast.
Yeah.
That would be
if that's true,
awesome.
Then count me in.
Joe Rogan was one of the people that were pretty pissed about it.
He's a comedian, so yeah, definitely.
It's been fascinating to look at everybody's response to it, especially on the comedy side, because the other thing that not a lot of people are bringing up is that he set a very dangerous precedent for comedians.
Yes.
If you're a comedian telling jokes on possibly the biggest stage in the world, and you're allowed to be bitch slapped with no repercussions there, who's to save Bill Burr when he gives the performance that I'm going to watch in Macon, Georgia in a couple of weeks? If he makes a black joke and somebody gets up there and fucking smacks the shit out of him.
You imagine?
Yeah. And Will Smith said it's okay. You know what I mean? To a degree. And so
he got away with it. Why can't I?
I would not want to be a comedian nowadays, because you got to worry about every joke ending your career because if it offends the wrong person, and now you got to worry about getting assaulted or worse because of a joke.
Yeah, and it's, you've seen that type of crowd not approaching the stage, but you've seen people heckle or I'm offended, and they'll kind of ruin the show for all the thousands of people that are in attendance. It truly amazes me, and it makes me think sometimes, how can someone be wired that way?
Hmm.
to think that their feelings outweigh the thousands around them.
Yeah.
I don't understand how people think sometimes.
Hmm.
I can't understand it. I can't.
Yeah. I don't understand that either. There's some narcissistic people out there. There's a lot of people out there that think the whole world is them and everybody else is just static and noise. And yeah,
It blows my mind, dude.
it does. Absolutely does. I thought I saw one more here. Hang
No problem.
on. This is one. I'm not going to talk about it too long, but yes, absolutely. That was a big shock for me. I don't know if you're a Foo Fighters fan, but that came out of absolutely
Yeah,
nowhere
I
the
know
other
of them, but
day.
I was never a fan. But yeah, I understand. Yeah, that's a huge loss. A
50 years
coworker
old.
of mine had tickets to go see them in August.
I was just thinking this year of like bucket list bands. I'm like, damn, I need to see Foo Fighters.
Mm-hmm.
And then there you go. I had just saw them in that Studio 666 movie too, like 2
Was
weeks
it any good?
prior.
I didn't see your review yet. I'm not gonna watch it, but
I didn't care for it.
yeah.
And it's weird because I'm the target audience for it. I'm a Foo Fighters fan and I'm a horror fan. And to me, it just wasn't very strongly written. They're
Mm.
kind of trying to do like a spoof of Evil Dead, if that
That's
can
what it
even.
looked like. Yeah,
Yeah,
the
it's
trailer.
essentially Evil Dead with them trying to record at a studio. There's some good gore in it in a couple of spots. But I don't obviously the Foo Fighters aren't actors, so that's the easy shot to take is that they're not particularly good in the movie as far as
Mhm.
actors. Luckily, the tone of the movie allows that, but I just didn't find it very funny. And I'm a very tough crowd for horror comedy, because I'm a very tough crowd for comedy. But if a horror comedy isn't scary or funny to me, you've really messed up. And I didn't think the movie was scary, and I didn't think it was very funny either. And they have um, very like frat boy humor in it.
Okay.
And so once you don't laugh at one joke, you kind of know what you're in for the rest of the movie. So
Yeah.
it was weird. Yeah, I didn't even review it fully. I just did my little out of theater reaction, and that was enough for me.
It looked like a project they did. Okay, we can't tour because of COVID, so what are we gonna do? Let's make that movie we've been talking about for the past few years. Something they did while COVID was
Yeah,
had them on
it
lockdown. That's what it looked like to me.
it's them with like two other actors, so that could very plausibly have been what they have done. It just wasn't for me, and I don't know who to recommend it to because I'm the person that should love it. A couple super chats. I've been to Iraq and Afghanistan 4 times in total. My toxic marriage felt way worse mentally to me than being over there.
There you go.
There you go. Thank you for your service, by the way. Brandon Jackson, sad to hear about Bruce Willis retiring. Yeah, dude. Um, Literally, I was holding back tears for a little bit. I don't often get really emotional about that kind of stuff, but just thinking about it for a moment about we might not ever get more Bruce Willis. And then the whole realization about all the jokes, I'm like, holy shit, was that why? And just it all kind of was just like this big ball of like, oh fuck, not
Yeah.
now. Yeah. Somebody else brought up Amy Schumer a bunch of times. I don't everybody's got their own taste. I don't know
Mhm.
how she keeps getting work because I've never met a single person that said she's funny. She might be a nice person. I don't mean to hate on her, but I've never met a single person that said she is funny.
Yeah. I like
And
that Trainwreck was a fun movie, but it was like,
and
other
she was the
people.
weakest part in it.
Yeah, that was the only thing I think I enjoyed her in.
Yeah. It's just I don't know. Not for me. Even the little bits that I saw in the Oscars, I was just like, wow.
Mhm.
Did you see her don't look up joke?
No. Like I
She
said,
was like
I didn't see it. I was watching Justice League and I was like, "Okay, then I
I just
watched."
did like little highlight clips, but she had a joke where she was talking about the movies that were nominated, and Don't Look Up got nominated, even though it's got like a 50% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Mhm.
And she's like, "Yeah, Don't Look Up's here, eligible for an Oscar. I guess everybody at the Academy, Don't Look Up reviews." And it was like,
Sorry. Not that I'm laughing because it's funny, because it's just so lazy. That's what it is.
"Thank you." That's the thing. I'm like, are you scared to get, to really get in there because you don't want to get canceled, or was that really your best effort to?
That was dad joke level bad. That's like, I'm not
Yeah.
even trying to making it up on the spot.
Yeah, and that was I know I've missed some super chats, guys. I didn't want to derail our conversation. I appreciate everybody's super chats genuinely. A lot of them were just kind of adding to the conversation. It wasn't necessarily direct questions. So I'll try to scroll back up, but if I miss some, I wasn't just ignoring you. It's just, we're deep in
Yeah.
conversation. Do you like Andrew Dice Clay? I've actually never listened to him.
I like his old stuff. Yeah, of course, in the '80s, and then
Hmm.
The Adventures of Ford Fairlane was a great movie I saw. That was the
Okay.
one that everybody talked about in high school. But yeah, his old stuff is a legendary, man.
Aaron Anderson, how come Will didn't punch the number of guys stuffing their jawbreakers down Jada's throat? Total punk move.
That's exactly telling, and that's
Yeah.
probably what Chris would have said. You gonna slap me? What about Augustine? What about all these other
That's
guys?
See, that's the thing, and that's what I'm saying. That's why I respect Chris Rock so much because it was literally like you could destroy that guy's entire existence with a layup.
You have so much to work with and go
Yeah.
with, man. Oh God, yeah.
And they've given it all to everybody. Like
That's the sad
nobody
part.
nobody has been involved in the Smiths' marriage by choice. They've just been like, "Here's everything," and we're just like,
Yeah,
"Well, fuck. What are we supposed to do with that besides make fun of it?" And yeah, I don't. I know it's been rumored for a long time, but for the way for them to finally reveal that they actually have somewhat of an open marriage, it was like, oh my god, could you
it's
have
like
picked a
you're doing this to yourself. That's
yeah?
what he's doing.
Really appreciate this type of conversation, guys. It's so important to discuss this stuff. Keep it up. Awesome.
Awesome. I need to get you on the podcast, man. Like we've been
Yeah,
talking about.
absolutely. I'll be there with bells on.
Yeah.
Daniel, both you bring in quality content, so thank you. That slap was a release from the past 4 years of global embarrassment brought on by Jada.
Yeah. This is a breaking point. Yeah.
It
Definitely.
was the lid flying off the jar. No question. Just love this chat. Thank you so much. I'm glad that fucking StreamYard finally allows you to scroll up past where it breaks. That used to kill me whenever I would get to a point and all of my shit would be erased from 5 minutes prior.
Huh. Okay.
Hi, the nice guy. Thank you so much.
I'm still experimenting with Ecamm. So for those who follow me, I haven't done a live in the past couple weeks because I bought a new software. I'm going away from StreamYard. So I'm learning that as I go. So I'm rebuilding the whole interface.
Awesome. My friend told me the other day, God forbid, that if Will did an OJ, man, could you imagine social media in 2022 to the reaction of that and the trial? I don't even want to imagine that. I don't even want to speak that into
Wow.
existence.
I went dark. Okay.
Yeah,
Wow.
really dark.
Wow. Shit.
Knowing the morality of Twitter, half the people in the world would be like, I get it. Let Will go.
Somebody's asking, Rudy, will you slap someone? I have. I have. Somebody insulted my wife back when I was young and married. They said something and I pushed him and slapped him and demanded that he apologize to her. This was at a club and he
slapped.
Totally
A
different.
slap is so much more insulting than a punch. A punch is like, let's go. A slap is like, you're my bitch. Now fucking do what I ask. Nathan Oswald, and happy news, Dune won 6 Oscars. Yes, it did. Congratulations, because I was very surprised how much I enjoyed that movie. Okay, I think we're caught up. Yeah, one of the things, that's part of the most insulting thing of it is that it was a slap instead of a punch.
Yeah.
And you can tell immediately that Will Smith knew Chris Rock wasn't going to do shit because he immediately turned his back and walked with no fucking fear whatsoever that anything was coming behind him.
Mm-hmm. Imagine if that was Joe Rogan. He wouldn't have gone up if it was Joe Rogan.
I said that in my video. I was trying to name off comedians. I was like, can you imagine if Joe Rogan was? I said, no, it wouldn't be Joe Rogan because he'd stomp some ass. But anyway.
He'd drop kick him and break him in half. Yeah, no way.
Nope. I would have to. He says Joe Rogan rightly rags on Carlos Mencia for stealing jokes, but gives Schumer a pass because she's his buddy. I've seen podcast episodes where he's addressed that in a way that's not really giving her a pass. So I don't know. I'm not saying he hasn't, but he's passionately against people stealing jokes. So I don't know. Not saying you're a liar. I would have to I'd be curious to see the episodes where he's defending her on that because I know she's been busted a couple of times. And he's got comedians that he loves that he still adds that to the end of it. Robin Williams, Dennis Leary.
Yeah.
I agree with what Jim Carrey said about the slap. Jim Carrey was the best response that I've seen to it yet. That was the best, the most. And it's because he has such a I don't give a fuck if I'm part of Hollywood. This was wrong kind of attitude towards it. And he's had his ups and downs. You know, he's kind of been ostracized from Hollywood to a certain degree because he's got a little wacky here and there. He's been through some dark shit. But I've always loved and respected Jim Carrey. He was such a big part of my childhood, along with Adam Sandler. So I love the fact that he's kind of with Sonic, especially kind of bringing back that old school Jim Carrey. Seems to be working his way back in. Seems to be more mentally healthy.
He's very humble. I love that about him. He's like
very humble. Yes, and that was the thing that I loved about it. It was just like, what do you think about it? And he was so human about it. He didn't approach it from I'm also an elite, so let me phrase my words carefully. He was just like, no. That was fucked up. He should have been escorted out. If it was me, I would have been suing his ass this morning.
Yeah.
And it was perfect. I've seen other comedians. Comedians have all had the best response to this. For as much as they try to be the funny people, they're also the ones that can get, that soul out there. And you've had people like Jeff Ross, who I think he's the comedian that does a lot of the roasts. And he had a really good response to it. He's like, I also have alopecia. It sucks. I don't hit people for it. And, there was a lot of really good ones.
There's a video I'm gonna send you later. It was a compilation of all these comedians responding to what happened. I was cracking up at the end, so I'll send it to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another Leguizamo. John Leguizamo had a really good one too, because he's been in the industry for
A long time. Yeah.
decades, and they stopped him, and he was very professional, but he was very very clear. He's like, yeah, it's a shame that he tarnished this whole thing that he's been working for with this, and you can't do that. And it
That's the sad
was,
part.
yeah. So let me see. He also laughed while Joey Diaz brags about coercing female comics into performing sexual favors to stay employed, and then virtue signaled about Weinstein for doing the same thing. Well, again, I would have to listen to it.
Yeah.
I don't, depending on what the joke is. Again, Joe Rogan's a dark comic, so he can see the comedy if it was not. I don't know. I would have to listen to it. I'd be curious too. Can't wait for Sonic 2. I'm with you. I really enjoyed the first one, so
I'll check that out.
let me see. Chris Rock's approval ratings are through the roof, though. His ticket sales certainly are.
Yeah, they've gone up in price. Yeah, they were like $40 a piece, like 400 now or something.
Yeah, they sold out like in a day. Let me see. Jim Carrey acknowledged that Hollywood is no longer the cool kids, something people have wanted to hear a big celebrated actor say. Well, that's kind of what I was saying earlier with why the Oscars has dipped in ratings for the past few years, because I think people are just so tied to the news and they're so aware with all the information coming at them that they're not into that anymore.
Yeah.
Back in the day, it was easy to look up to John Wayne and, even in the 90s and Adam Sandler. These people are awesome. They're the best people ever. And the more you see their everyday lives and their every fucking thought on Twitter and everything, people are more and more detached to where they're like, you guys are in your own world.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Hollywood has become so arrogant that they believe that they are the moral compass for the world. You should all listen to us. You should vote how we tell you to vote. You should respond and speak how we tell you to speak, because we are perfect. We are morally above you, floating above you like angels. And people are calling bullshit on that nowadays. They're like, no, fuck off. And so that's a big part of it. And so Jim Carrey saying that, yeah, that's absolutely true. Like, we all still love movies. We have certain celebrities that we love, but the conversation has changed. It's not like this for a lot of us. There's still some people that do. We're not idolizing them anymore.
No,
like we used to. We're just kind of like, you guys are kind of fucking unhinged.
Yeah, it's more IPs now that draw people to the movies, and it's not the star anymore.
Yeah, the movie star, with the exception of a few people, like maybe Tom Cruise, is pretty much dead.
Exactly.
All right. Well, we're gonna wrap this up, guys. We've been going for 2 hours. I don't want to keep Rudy for his entire birthday. But, yeah.
Just kidding.
Thank you guys so much for joining us. This was a really fun and important.
This is a different live. I like this.
Yeah, I liked it too. I like doing something different. I get tired of talking about the same shit all the time. So I'm glad everybody kind of chimed in for this one. So thank you guys for watching us. I have links for Rudy's channel down in the description for Rudy's movie reviews, but I will go back and try to add TikTok as well as a link to the Gen X podcast. But if you like this type of conversation, subscribe to the Gen X EXD podcast. And this is what Rudy does every single week, right? Once a week, you guys do a live.
We do a live on Fridays. That's kind of changing right now, but yeah, we have one episode up a week, but we have a ton. We have 36 podcasts up right now, episodes, so you can check that out. Hey, can I want to make a birthday wish right now?
Yes,
I can. I have 3,977 subscribers right now. I don't know if you can see that. Can I get at least 25 subscribers to hit 4,000? That's my birthday wish for my 45th birthday.
Everybody right now, or I will cancel you from my channel.
A minimum of 25. I just want to hit 4,000 tonight for my 45th birthday. If I can get that for my birthday wish,
we'll get you there.
Be happy, man.
Links down below to Rudy's movie reviews. If you are not a subscriber, please subscribe down there. If nothing else for his birthday, but because there's also really good content. If you like Metal Gear Solid, there's a great video on that. We did collabs on Resident Evil. We've also done a couple of live streams. So please sub down there. Give him his birthday wish. Happy birthday once again. Thank you for joining me. I know this is not I felt so bad when you're like, it's my birthday. I was like, oh fuck, I didn't mean to take you away.
The plans are this weekend. I was free tonight, so it's no big deal. Hey, this was fun, man. I'm glad I did it.
Yeah, awesome. It was very fun. So thank you for joining me. Thank everybody for watching. Thank you for the super chats. You guys are awesome, and we will see you on the next one. Hopefully a little bit less crazy.